and stolen belongings.
Court can order, all rise.
Judge Judy enters.
Have a seat, everyone.
Kevin approaches the bench.
Hello, Judge. Case number 2028, Eliasoff Blanchard versus Blanchard.
Thank you, Kevin.
Welcome.
Eliasoff,
Yes, ma'am.
that's you. How old are you?
19, almost 20.
19.
Yes, ma'am.
What do you do?
I am a server
Since when?
as of June of this year.
This is your boyfriend,
A fiance, yes, please.
fiance. And how long has he been your fiance?
For over a year.
What does he do for a living?
He is currently unemployed.
When was the last time he had a job?
That was about a year ago.
What kind of work did he do a year ago?
Warehouse work.
Is there any reason that he hasn't worked in a year?
He has concussions and back injuries and
From what?
from car accidents.
Does he currently have any lawsuits pending with regard to those accidents?
No, ma'am.
So the accidents were your fault?
No, they were the other people's faults.
The other people had no
Sorry, the other person didn't have insurance at the time. So later on, he ended up stating that he did have insurance and got out of the ticket.
Do you see a doctor regularly?
Not anymore, no. I used to, though, until I ran out of my insurance for health insurance. And then the bill just kept stacking up on me.
At that time, did you have an attorney?
No, Your Honor.
Did you ever have an attorney with regard to, did you have a consultant attorney with regard to these accidents? No.
No.
Okay, fine. Is there any reason why you're not working?
Yes, ma'am. I have bad back problems that I've had for quite some time. I have 4 discs out of my lower back. I also have knee injuries, shoulder injuries. I was pushing my body more than I should have been. I was over 300 pounds working in a heated environment, working every day. And I dropped all the weight, and then I ended up hurting myself even further from there. And then my doctor told me not to do anything over 20 pounds, so I went against her rules, and I did it anyways, and I kept injuring myself.
What kind of work does your father do?
He works as a U-Haul business associate and mechanic as well.
When did you live with your father?
I lived with my father in January, I believe it was 8th
January of what year?
of 2022, sorry.
After you have been disabled all this time
Yes.
because of all the heavy work.
Yes.
Let me give a general outline of what this case is about.
Yes, ma'am.
You and your fiance were living where?
We were living with my father,
No, before you lived with your father.
My father.
her father.
In what state?
Wyoming.
There come a time when your father either said it's enough or you decided that you were no longer happy in Wyoming?
It was a conflict with his girlfriend that came about.
Whatever it was, if it was a conflict with his girlfriend, your father told you to skedaddle,
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
and you called your father.
No, I didn't call my father.
Who did?
My father called me.
You mean just out of the blue?
Yeah, he does it at random once in a while.
He just called you at about the same time that your fiance's father told you to get out.
Yes, is what I believe. Anyways, I've had a few concussions, Your Honor, and I don't remember a lot.
Okay, we're going to get there. In any event, you had a discussion with your father that you didn't have a place to live, you didn't have a job, she didn't have a job, you had no money, your father was kicking you out of the house, and he drove cross country to get you.
Yes, ma'am.
In what month?
It was in January.
January of 2022.
Yes, ma'am.
How many miles did he drive to come and get you?
I think 1,000 miles maybe.
Each way?
Each way, probably about 2,000 total, something like that.
Okay, so he drove 2,000 miles to come and get you,
Yes, ma'am.
and then he brought you back to his house,
Yes, ma'am.
and you weren't working,
Yes, ma'am.
and the girlfriend wasn't working.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so if you weren't working, the girlfriend wasn't working, you had no money, so your father was taking care of your expenses.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. And now you're suing him. And you're suing him for a host of things, which I'm going to give you a relatively short time to tell me about. But one of the things that your girlfriend, fiance says is that your father owes you for wages because you work for him.
Yes, ma'am.
Doing what?
I was doing U-Haul work, basically.
What is U-Haul work?
Oh, sorry. I'll explain. Sorry, ma'am. Basically, what we do
Not
is
basically. I don't want to hear basically.
Sorry,
I want to hear what you were doing.
I would hook up U-Hauls. I would also clean and inspect all the vehicles.
Just a second. Hook up the U-Hauls,
Hook up the U-Hauls,
clean and inspect them.
clean and inspect them.
What does it involve in cleaning them?
Basically, spraying down.
Not
all-
basically.
Sorry, ma'am. Sorry. We spray down all the.
Not we, you.
Yeah, sorry. I spray down every single surface of the innards of the vehicle, basically the steering wheel, the floor blades, the radio, everything.
And when you hook them up, explain how you hook something up.
How I have to hook something up is just backing up, lining up with.
So you'd have to drive.
Yes, ma'am.
And you're driving a car and backing up.
Yes, ma'am. And
So
then,
you're using a rear view mirror
yes,
and yourself. You're looking to see where you're backing up because you have to use both.
yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then you hook them up. What else did you do for your father?
I also did paperwork for him, doing like inventory stocks and stuff
Okay.
like that.
Terrific.
Basically.
Not basically. I don't want to hear basically. Basically is a filler
Sorry,
word.
ma'am. What else was I doing? I would sweep, clean up his shop. I would do a lot of things.
Okay,
for him.
all while you were unable to do anything else.
Yes, ma'am. I would.
Well, just a second.
what were you
all
saying?
after your back issues, after your concussions, after whatever other injuries that you had from working someplace. By the way, you don't have a lawsuit pending against anybody, do you?
No, ma'am.
So it's just a question of fetching, other than maybe trying to collect a disability somewhere along the line from the federal government. You were able to hook up U-Hauls, clean them and sanitize them, sweep out the premises, do paperwork, but you can't work. I mean, because part of the lawsuit is about all this work that you did, but all while you're telling me that you're unemployable because of all the injuries that you had.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okey-dokey. You understand how ridiculous that sounds to me.
Yes.
I only had one other case in my recent memory that sounded anywhere familiar to this story, and that was a man that was also receiving disability because he had a bad back. He was the plaintiff in a lawsuit suing someone because he had built them an outdoor patio deck alone, and he wasn't paid the $6,000 for it. But he had been collecting disability for a back ailment for 31 years from the federal government. That sound odd to you?
Yeah.
Well, doesn't it sound odd to you that you're able to put hookups together and sweep and everything else, but you can't say, do you want a hamburger with your fries or fries with a burger?
Yes, ma'am.
That sounds peculiar to you. Right, so I don't want to hear about work. Okay, that's the first thing. And you lived in your father's house for how long, by the way?
I think we only lived there for the first month, and then we ended up getting moved out to a camper for like the last bit of the, I think, 2 months that we were there.
I don't know what you're suing for. You want to tell me?
Caption, coming up.
I don't want to see any pictures of what? Of the truck?
The parts that were missing.
I don't care.
And
I don't care. After 2 weeks, he could burn that truck. It's on his property without his permission. Let's go.
And later today.
That you said perfectly. I would ask her for $50 or $100, and she would lend me that. Is that the word she used?
She would lend me money and vice versa.
Thank you.
A courthouse. The Judy Justice logo appears. In the courtroom, Kaya, Brandon, and William.
19-year-old Kaya Eliasov and Brandon Blanchard claim Brandon's father, William Blanchard, owes for unpaid wages and stolen property. William is countersuing for moving expenses and property damage.
Now, I'm not entertaining your wages because you can't work. That's what he just swore to. He can't work. That's why he's unemployed. He has 4 disc problems. I think he said 4. Whatever. He can't work. Forget him now. I want you to tell me what you're suing this man who drove 2,000 miles to rescue you after your father threw you out. I want you to tell me what you think he owes you for.
for the stolen property of my vehicle.
What stolen property of your vehicle?
He stole my toolbox with the key with it and also parts that went to my vehicle.
Did you take her toolbox?
No, ma'am, I did not.
Next. What's next?
Whenever I confronted him about it,
About what?
about the toolbox when we went to go get my truck, then he would say what he just said, that he never took it. But when I asked him where did the key go for it, he denied. He would just ignore that fact.
Well, it's not a fact. It's not a fact unless
Or
you can
just
prove
like-
that he took
or-
your property. You said he just said to you, I don't have your toolbox.
But my vehicle was on his property, in his possession.
Okay. And that's what you have. Your vehicle, while you were living there, was on his property, and therefore he's responsible for the toolbox.
Yes, ma'am. When he kicked us out and then told us to come back for the truck, he was going to give us 2 weeks to have it towed. And-
Because the truck wasn't working, but he let the truck stay on his property for 2 weeks.
Yes.
What else are you suing him for?
Just for the repairs on the vehicle.
On what vehicle?
On my truck, that whenever I went to go get the truck off his property after that 2 weeks, that's when the toolbox was missing, and I also looked under the hood and there was wires hanging out, and those wires, I do have pictures.
Just a
and
second.
There was,
Let me ask you this question. You said, hey, you said he gave you 2 weeks to come and get your truck off his property. The truck was inoperable when you left it on his property. Wasn't running.
no ma'am.
That's right. You did not come to get it off his property in 2 weeks. You came after the 2 weeks.
Yes, ma'am.
How much after the 2 weeks?
I think just like a couple days after. We came back on April 23rd and we left the property April 6th.
So it was after the 2 weeks.
Yes, ma'am.
Anything else?
Yes, Your Honor.
Well, let's get there fast because I'm quickly losing patience with 2 ingrates.
Here's the pictures.
I don't want to see any pictures of what? Of the truck?
The parts that were missing.
I don't care.
And
I don't care. After 2 weeks, he could burn that truck. It's on his property without his permission. Let's go. Move on. Your father came 2,000 miles to get you. He fed you for a month. He kept a roof over your head for a month. In return, you're suing him for nonsense. Let us move on.
Yes, Your Honor.
Anything else?
No, Your Honor.
Very good. Okay. Now, Mr. Blanchard,
Yes, ma'am.
you have a countersuit that actually you wouldn't have brought now because you didn't have an agreement with your son and his fiancee when you went to get him. How many children do you have?
8 altogether.
Prior to going to get him cross country, when had you seen him?
It's been several years.
Tell me about the conversation when he contacted you.
He said, Dad, I have no place to go. we can try to stay with her grandmother. I offered, said, I'll come get you if you have no place to go.
And then?
Within a week, I dropped everything to go get him.
Now, when your son and his fiance came to you, sir, did you put him to work in your business?
Yes, ma'am.
And how long was he in your business?
Altogether, maybe less than 90 days.
Did he work in your business after they moved out of your house? He says they only lived in your house for 30 days.
They were in the house 45 days, and then they were left another 45 days inside of a camper.
Can you tell me why they moved into a camper?
There was a chance of my daughter coming home, and they were living in her room at the time. And so I wanted to make sure they still had something, so I put them into a camper.
Camper on your property?
Yes, Your Honor.
What kind of camper?
Small camper. It had
So
a
they
power.
used the inside of the house to shower and
Yes, Your Honor.
stuff, but they slept in the camper?
Yes, Your Honor.
All true?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
And he paid for the camper, he paid for the electricity, water, etc. when you were in there. She wasn't working. Did he also pay for the food? Did you eat in the house or did you eat in the camper?
No, ma'am. We were getting food stamps. So we paid for our own food. And we also helped them with their food as well.
Why were you getting food stamps?
For the short bit of time because he recommended to get on food stamps.
Had you been on food stamps when you lived in Wyoming?
No, ma'am.
Okay, how did you support yourself there?
I was working at the time.
And what about him?
Driving company, basically, we go around, pick up food from places and
So you were able to drive?
Yes,
Oh,
for only a little bit.
with all those injuries. Amazing. Okay, I would like you to testify, sir, now to the conversation that you had with your son with regard to compensation for coming to pick him up in Wyoming. Be very careful what you say to me.
I told my son before I picked him up, I said, you need to pay me back for this trip.
Did you tell him what for the trip? I mean,
Yes,
your
for all
time,
expenses. All expenses for the trip.
For the expenses.
Yes, Your Honor.
How was he supposed to do that? He wasn't working.
He was supposed to get a nighttime job on top of working, helping me out around my shop.
Did he help you around your shop?
He
You
did.
said about 90 days. Did you pay him?
No, Your Honor.
Well, if he worked for you for 90 days and you didn't pay him at all, and it cost you a couple of $1,000s, according to you,
Yes, Your Honor.
to go out and get him, hire trucks, spend time back, whatever it was, and he worked for you for 90 days without compensation, why do you think he did that?
I was hoping just because that's what he really wanted to do.
No good deed goes unpunished. You went and you got him, and now they're suing you, but their case is dismissed. They have no case against you. It's all a bunch of nonsense and ridiculous. But likewise, sir, your counterclaim is for the expenses that you incurred in going to pick them up. I don't actually think that there was an agreement to pay you back for your expenses, but even if there was an agreement to pay you back for your expenses, the fact that he worked for 90 days without any compensation, I think, more than compensates you for that. As a result of that, your counterclaim as well is dismissed. We're finished here.
This court is adjourned.
You try to do your best for your kids whenever you can, and this is no different.
It's been very difficult growing up.
I hope he gets his life together.
I don't want anything to do with him.
I'll always be there for him.
It's time to cut the strings. I'm done with him.
That young man sounded as if he was intelligent. That doesn't mean he was smart. That means he was intelligent. Because at age 19 or 20, to have already figured out that you can't work because you have a bad back unless you really have to work. If you really have to work, then you can work for your father. That's a bad mindset for a very young person. That means that your life is really going nowhere. You're not preparing yourself to do anything.
And to take it a step further and to sue the only person that was there for you in a time when you needed them.
No good deed goes unpunished.
Case number 2059, Dobson versus Jones, Poindexter. All parties, please step forward.
Clarissa Dobson is suing her sister-in-law, Kenesha Jones Poindexter, for a trip and wedding expenses.
Judy.
Miss Dobson, I assume this is your brother,
Yes, it is, Your Honor.
and this is his wife.
That is correct.
They're newly married.
That's correct.
When were they married?
June of 2021, June 26th.
Were you at the wedding?
Yes, I was. I was in the wedding.
Wedding at your house?
Wedding was at my home.
This is the unfortunate circumstance that I read in your papers, which I hope to be able to resolve quickly. You've known the defendant for many, many years.
Yes, that's correct.
She became engaged too when she was getting married, and they planning a wedding according to you. And Miss Poindexter, according to you, asked you to lay out certain monies for her for the wedding.
That's correct.
They were married. It was a joyous day, I gather. And then you asked her for the money back.
Yes, that's correct.
And she said, I never agreed to pay you any money. We're family. I've done things for you. You've done things for me. There was never an agreement for me to pay you. And your brother, he said, leave me out of this.
Yep.
I don't want to get involved with this. You two ladies take care
That's
of it
exactly
on
what he
your own.
said.
Okay, well, it seems like a family matter, then more like a court matter.
Caption coming up.
I don't see stupid written over here.
No.
If somebody doesn't have $50 and you think I believe that you relied on her statement that I'm going to pay you for this trip that your brother is going on too, I don't believe it.
A courthouse. The Judy Justice logo appears. In the courtroom, Clarissa and Kenesha.
Clarissa Dobson claims her sister-in-law, Kenesha Jones Poindexter, is responsible for trip costs and wedding expenses.
You have your own home.
Yes, that's correct.
Tell me about your home.
Nice home, got a lot of land around the property.
How much?
I would say probably a half an acre, which was big enough to put up 2 large tents, 45 guest tables, chairs, the mayor, some police. It was nice.
And there were certain things that you paid for.
Yes, that's correct.
You paid for a photographer?
Yes, that's correct.
How much?
The photographer was $300, Your Honor.
Okay, what else did you pay for?
Because the party was held at the home, the wedding, excuse me, all the events pertaining to the wedding party had to take place at the home.
Like what?
So like when we had our bridal shower meetings, because also Miss...
Oh, you mean the meetings to plan the wedding?
Right, to plan the wedding.
I'm not interested in
You're
that.
not interested in that?
I'm not interested in that. Yeah, so far we have $300 for a photographer that you say you laid out. Did she lay out that money?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, what else?
Her rides back and forth.
I'm not interested in her rides back.
Well, how was she going to get this? She's in Philadelphia. I'm in New Jersey.
$300 for a photographer. What else?
And just money she asked to borrow for the most part throughout the wedding.
Just a second.
So we
For
have...
how much and
Okay.
when? So far, $300 for a photographer.
So on January 20th, Your Honor, we have $150.
For what?
She didn't say what it was for. It was for the wedding, though, because I have it here. Everything wedding is here.
Well, did she ask you for this $150 on the phone, in person?
She asked for it like over the phone, but then I sent the money too. So anything that I sent to her, I always sent to her through Cash App because she's in Philadelphia, no car.
Okay, then let me ask Miss Poindexter. Miss Poindexter, there would be no other reason for Miss Dobson to send money to you through a Cash App during the wedding period other than for the wedding. Would that be accurate?
Not in January, Your Honor. We didn't start planning our wedding until 90 days before June. So anything that happened in January had nothing to do with my wedding.
Okay. Do you have Cash App statements before January?
I have nothing before January.
She has nothing before.
I have everything
Only after.
January on.
Only after. So that would be for the wedding.
We didn't start planning our wedding until about March. We got married in June.
So what would she be sending you money for?
It has been times, I'm sorry, it has been times when I'll ask her for, let me get $50 or, it has been times if I didn't have it or I might have needed car fare or something, and she would do that. She would lend me money and vice versa.
No, I'm not talking about vice versa. I don't have a counterclaims. That you said perfectly. I would ask her for $50 or $100 and she would lend me that. Is that the word she used? Let's make sure I heard that right.
She says, it has been times when I'll ask her for, let me get $50, or there has been times. And you asked her why. She said if I didn't have it or I need a car fare or something, and she would do that. She would lend me money and vice versa.
Thank you. Lend me money. So, okay, now we're going to get to Miss Dobson. How much money did you send her via Cash App? Because she's already just acknowledged that those were loans.
So 150, 100.
Let me have the dates.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
All
let's
right.
go back. 150 on what date?
January 20th.
Okay, 100 on what date?
February 11th.
Next.
March 8th, $50.
Okay.
April 4th, $100. May 11th, $20. May 17th, $25. May 22nd, $205. 15 on May 25th. May 28th, $45. June 3rd, $15. And I had a February 28th in here for $50. That was the first one, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I had February 11th only, so you have another...
Right, a February 28th for $50.
Can I see all of those?
Yes, ma'am.
Clarissa hands documents to Kevin, who brings them to Judy. She reviews them.
Okay. Sarah Rose, would you fix that up for me? Okay, and you, based upon the read back and based upon what I thought I heard, anytime she sent you money, it's because you ran out of money, you were in a bind, and she loaned you the money. That's what was here. You have
$775.
$775. Has she paid you back any of that money?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, now, the photographer. I want you to tell me how it came about that you paid the photographer.
Because Miss Jones / Poindexter was waiting on unemployment to hit. And I'm not saying she wasn't trying to get the money up, because she was. But when the time came, this photographer guy needed to get paid, she didn't have the money.
Want to tell me about the photographer?
Yes, the photographer, I believe I was short like $300 some odd dollars, and Clarissa did put the rest of the money.
Why didn't you pay her the $775?
I don't believe I owe Clarissa.
Well, you just told her that she loaned you the money when you were short, and she wired it to you or did whatever they do in a Cash App. I don't understand all of that. You said it was a loan. Is there any reason why you didn't pay her back? No. Okay. So far I have $775 and $300. Next.
Okay, so now we have the trip. They are the godparents of my twins. Yeah, Anna, we were inseparable.
Okay,
So,
they're the godparents of your twins, your
Yep.
twins.
came time for their birthday. She said
Month and year.
April of last year, 2021.
Okay, April of 2021.
Right. So in the process of planning the twins' birthday, Miss Jones Poindexter said, oh, I would like to go. I'm just waiting on the unemployment, pandemic money, all that to hit. When it came time to go, they didn't have the money.
You're talking about the defendant and your brother.
Yeah.
They both went.
Right. So
just a second. They both went.
They both went. That's correct.
And what kind of work does your brother do?
He was a chef at the time.
So he was working.
Yes.
And she wasn't working.
Yes. Can I say something?
You can say whatever you want to say. You know where I'm going, don't you?
I know where you're going.
Okay.
Like I said, we were inseparable, right?
I don't care. I don't care about the social aspect of this.
Okay, but certain things she just didn't want to let him know she was doing, because at the end of the day, she thought she was going to get this money.
Miss Dobson, I don't care whether you say she didn't know what she was doing. You were already in a place where on January 20th, she didn't have $150, so you sent it to her. On February 11th, she didn't have $100, you sent it to her. On March 8th, she didn't have $50. You had to send it to her. So I don't see stupid written over here.
No.
If somebody doesn't have $50 and you think I believe that you relied on her statement that I'm going to pay you for this trip that your brother is going on too because his godchildren are celebrating a birthday, I don't believe it. So let's just forget a trip. $775 is what she says she owes you because she says it was a loan. $300 for the photographer. You have the pictures?
Yes, ma'am.
And I don't hear anything from you suggesting to me that this $300 was a gift.
I honestly did believe that she was doing it for our wedding.
Okay, good. $1075, judgment for the plaintiff. Thank you very much.
So, Your Honor,
Court is adjourned.
That's it.
It's just a sad situation all the way around.
That's probably how she feels right now.
I love my sister-in-law.
She loved me and I love her. So what?
Honestly, I just want to be able to see my god.
I'm sure we'll be all right.
It's always unfortunate and sad when nice occasion.
For personal belongings.
Judy enters.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, please.
Kevin.
Case number 27, Irwin versus Irwin.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Miss Irwin, this is your dad,
Yes, he is.
and you're 19?
Yes, I am.
According to what I read in your complaint, your parents divorced when you were 10,
Yes.
and your father was your primary custodian. You lived with him.
Yes, I did.
Did you graduate from high school?
Yes, I did.
When you were 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16, did you live with your father?
At the age of 15, I moved out because,
Okay, so at age 15, you moved out.
yes.
Because here you said, when I was 18, my father kicked me out of the house for no good reason.
Yes.
Guess what? Well, you just told me that you left the house when you were 15.
Yes, and I lived with my mother for 2 years, and...
Okay, so from age 15 to 17, you lived with your mother.
Yes.
Is that to 17, you lived with your mother?
Yes.
Is that because you were having difficulty with your father?
Yes.
Okay, and then you went to live with your mother.
Yes.
But that didn't last.
No.
So now, at 17, you go back to your father,
Yes.
and you stayed with him until you were 18.
Yes, correct.
So far, I have the fact that your family is a little dysfunctional, but that you had certain problems.
I moved out when I was 18.
Just a second. Would that be a fair statement, that you had some problems?
No, it would not be.
Okay. What high school did you graduate from?
It's a school partnered with the National Guard for kids that are off track to get them back on track.
Did you have to pay for that school?
No, they are paid by the government.
Could you look them up for me?
Yeah, it's a residential program for youths aged 16 to 18 who've dropped out of school or who are seriously behind in credits and need to catch up quickly.
Okay, so you were dropped out of school?
No.
Or seriously behind?
Yes.
Dropped out or behind in credits.
Okay. And how old were you when you graduated from?
I was 17 years old.
And so at that point, you moved in with your father?
Yes.
And why did you leave when you were 18?
He had evicted me.
Okay, and I'd like you to tell me your version of his evicting you when you were 18, because this case involves you're suing your father for items that he disposed of that were yours, and you want this court to award you $7,400 for the things that he disposed of that were yours.
Yes.
Okay, so tell me why you believe he evicted you when you were 18.
I believe he evicted me when I was 18 because I was buying my first car and he got jealous of the car I had, and he stated that when I moved back in for the second time. He evicted me the second.
No. We're on the first time that your father evicted you, not the second time. The first time your father evicted you, I can ask him, or you want me to stay with you?
You can ask him.
Fine. Tell me why you evicted her the first time, which you did.
The main reasons would be that she agreed to pay rent, which she never did.
She working?
Off and on. I'd say over the past 2 years, she's probably had, from my guesstimate, 15 to 20 jobs, all ranging from an hour, a day, I think the longest being about 3 months. Can't maintain a job, would prefer to smoke pot all day in her room and hang out with her boyfriend, basically. Which at the time, for the first eviction, she did not know Corey.
Okay.
But she still does the same thing.
Yeah, well, that's unfortunate. That's what you indicate here. So that was the reason that you evicted her the first time. And that was maybe in June?
I would have filed that June 9th of 2021.
Okay. But she came back shortly thereafter, in October.
The sheriffs removed her August 13th, 2021.
Is that because you asked her to leave and she wouldn't?
It's a three-step process. And I had a 24-hour notice posted to the door after 34 days.
Well, I mean, she's your daughter.
Yeah.
So there must have been some discussion, Mr. Irwin, with her. You saying to her, listen, this is not working out.
There wasn't a discussion, Your Honor.
Was not.
I served her the first notice. We talked about it.
Oh, you talked about it?
Prior to me filing. I told her I would do it. I don't think she believed me.
She knew you wanted her to leave as a result of that discussion.
Yes.
And she didn't.
She did not.
She had lived with you off and on, with the exception of 2 years that she lived with her mother, and part of it in a residential program. It's a residential program, correct?
Yes.
When she lived with you, she was 10 years old. Can you tell me, Mr. Irwin, from the time she was 10 until the time she was 18 and she was ultimately evicted, what items in the house she purchased? Bed, TVs, anything big?
She never purchased anything.
When she came back from her mother, what did she come back with?
I believe just a few clothes and a bag. She had to kind of run back.
And to the best of your knowledge, had your daughter maintained any sort of gainful employment the last 3 years?
No.
So other than the clothes she came back with when she was 17, there were no big ticket items?
There were a few by the time I had to evict her the second time, but I would have furnished those, being, you know, bed set, furniture,
bed.
Tempur-Pedic bed. I think that's part of what she's really wanting out of this $7,400.
Okay, so you purchased a bed?
Yes.
Because you didn't have one in the room where she was?
I was just trying to take care, yeah. I was using the room for my own purposes. I live alone until she moved back in, and usually welcoming of my daughter coming home. So I furnished a room.
Okay, so that's why you left the first time. The first time you left because he got annoyed that you were hanging around doing nothing and smoking pot.
I did pay rent,
Right.
too.
Right.
No,
And weren't doing it much.
No, I was not smoking often.
We're not doing much, is what I said.
Yes, I had a job. I worked at the beginning of the year.
For how many days?
I worked there for about 3 months, and then I worked as a kennel technician for about 2 months.
What happened to both those jobs?
My dad, his alcoholism, he would never let me sleep in the room as I was paying rent, and he would lock me out. He would lock me out. He would lock me out, and he would flip the garage switch, so I wasn't able to get access to the house. I wasn't able to get clean, so I couldn't obtain the job, and my mental health wasn't there for that job, so that's why I took the kennel technician job, and that's when he evicted me.
Where are you living now?
With my boyfriend.
That's him.
Yes.
And where are you working now?
I am unemployed.
Sorry, that's easy. So now you're not working. Now nobody's locked you out. Nobody's made it impossible for you to work. And what kind of work does your boyfriend do?
He is construction. I do DoorDash.
Okay. Your boyfriend is construction.
Yes.
How old is he?
He is 20 years old.
Judy gestures for a young man to rise.
You're Corey.
Yes, Your Honor.
Who do you live with?
My mom and her new husband.
How did I know that? How did I just know that? It's so perfect to be old that, I mean, I asked the questions. I could have asked the questions and answered the questions. So you and your girlfriend live with your mother?
Yes, Your Honor.
Did you graduate from high school?
Yes, Your Honor.
And what's the name of the company that you work for?
Landscape.
Do you work for them full time?
Yes, I do.
For how long?
I've been working for them about 2 months now.
2 months?
Yes.
Prior to that, what did you do?
I worked for Chewy.
Chewy, the dog products?
Yes, Your Honor.
What happened to that job?
I just wasn't liking the job anymore, and I thought I could do a lot harder work, and that's what I strive to do, is just continue trying to be the best person I can.
And what does your girlfriend do all day when you're out in your landscaping job for the last 2 months?
She stays busy going to the gym and making sure that everything is in tip-top shape, and just bringing me lunch when I'm on my break for work.
And you're living in your mom's house. Be a fair statement. You don't have to be a math wizard, which I am not, because you don't have enough money to move out into your own place.
Yes, Your Honor.
Does your mom work?
Yes, she does.
Who else lives in the house?
Her newly husband.
You have a room in your mom's house?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is it furnished?
Yes, Your Honor.
Who bought the furniture?
I bought the bed set, and
Tell me when you bought the bed set.
I bought it about 2 years ago because we moved there recently.
So what you're telling me is you purchased a new mattress
Yes.
with your earnings.
Yes, Your Honor.
And how much was it?
It was about 1,500.
And if you left the house, you would want to take your mattress because you bought it.
Yes, Your Honor.
You wouldn't take any of the other furniture in the house because you didn't buy it.
Yes, correct.
Whether it's your dresser or a TV in your room, your parents bought that.
Yeah.
The mattress you bought.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now you can sit.
Corey sits. Caption coming up.
Show me that you gave him $3,000. I can't figure that you had saved $3,000.
I gave him that to purchase the mattress because that was the time I was purchasing my car.
How could you purchase a car? You don't work.
A courthouse. The Judy Justice logo appears. In the courtroom, Isabel and Neil.
19-year-old Isabel Irwin claims her father, Neil Irwin, owes for personal belongings.
Now, I'm going to sort of pull this together. Eventually, you moved back into the house after an initial eviction and you weren't doing well, I assume.
Yes.
And then you came back a couple of months later and asked your father if you could move back in.
Yes.
And he said, okay.
Yes.
And that didn't work out. He was unhappy with the arrangement.
I was paying rent before. He was kicking me out, so I decided not to pay rent.
Whatever the reason, he wasn't happy with it. You were gone for a couple of months.
He evicted me, yes.
Yes. Well, he evicted you for a reason, Miss Irwin. You have to stop being a baby. He evicted you for a reason. He took you back because you went there. You said, I have no place to go. I assume, without going into specifics, because you look a little frightened, and I don't have to get that crazy with you because it sounds like a very sad situation. He said, it's not working out again. I want you to leave. And when you left, you did not, according to you, take your stuff. And your father, at some point after he received a text message from you, which I assume you have, sir.
I do.
Which said, have a nice life. After he received that, waited a while and disposed.
That was a statement I made because I asked him to help me fill up my tires because they needed air, and I saw him pull into the Safeway parking lot and leave with his groceries, and he never helped me.
Okay, so you said have a nice life. And then you want a whole bunch of things from the house. Now, I want you to tell me, with your limited work history, which you have, hardly enough to sustain yourself, because in October you came back to him and said, I need a place to live. So I want you to tell me what you purchased.
I purchased the Tempur-Pedic bed.
And who did you purchase it from?
My father.
You purchased it from your father?
Yes, he made the original purchase and said I could just give him the money, which I did.
Okay. And how much did you give him for the mattress?
$3,000.
That's incorrect.
Show me that you gave him $3,000. I can't figure that you had saved $3,000.
I gave him that to purchase the mattress because that was the time I was purchasing my car.
How could you purchase a car? You don't work. You don't work.
Isabel hands a document to Kevin, who brings it to Judy. She reviews it.
The first
This
one was
doesn't tell me anything.
Transaction
This
that
just
he
doesn't
wanted to
tell, this
withdraw.
doesn't tell me anything. You want to tell me that tells me nothing. You want to give that to her. I would have to find credible, Miss Irwin, that you had managed to save from your job that you had for 3 months while you claim you were paying your father rent $3,000.
It was the leftover money from me purchasing my car.
Oh, I don't believe that. For 1 second. Okay, you want to tell me about the mattress, sir?
Okay, simply put, I got one for myself when she wasn't living with me, and the mattress I furnished her with, it was a Ford model. He gave me a good deal on it. I got retails about $3,500. I got it for $2,300. My daughter and I did have an agreement that she could purchase the mattress for $1,800. However, as you may have figured out, that did not occur.
And this was after she moved back in October, or when she was...
Yep, yes it was.
After she moved back in October?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, the mattress is staying where it is. Okay, now let's go to dresser, nightstand, and TV. So you acknowledge that none of those things you purchased, bed, dresser, nightstand, and TV?
No, I did not purchase them.
Okay, now that's your father's. He threw out my clothes, shoes, and jewelry. Now, you were evicted.
Yes.
Was it an actual eviction? Did marshals come to the house?
No, I got served the eviction notice on June 30th. He illegally locked me.
No. It's June 30th.
Yes.
So on June 30th, you were given an eviction notice that said that you had to be out on what date?
In 30 days.
Okay. So far, is that correct, Mr. Irwin?
That's fairly correct. I do have the 30-day no-cause notice to quit that she was served.
Okay, and on what date did you leave?
On July 1st, because he had thrown a can.
Just a second.
Boyfriend.
You left on July 1st?
Yes.
Tell me how you left.
I packed a small bag and I had left.
You packed a small bag that contained what?
A few of my clothes and whatever I could grab for a few nights.
And where did you go?
to my boyfriend's house.
So you went to Corey's house?
Yes.
Do you have a laptop?
I do not.
Do you have a phone?
Yes, I do.
Did you take the phone?
Yes, I did.
You took some clothes with you, and you knew that you had an eviction notice, correct?
Yes.
Tell me what jewelry you allege your father threw out.
He threw out my necklace my boyfriend had bought me.
Okay. Which boyfriend?
This boyfriend, Corey.
Tell me about the necklace.
He had purchased it for my birthday.
Okay. Stand up, Corey. Tell me about the necklace you purchased.
I had purchased it from K Jewelers. I had purchased it for about $250.
Okay. When?
On her birthday, just a little before.
When's her birthday?
February 20th.
Did she wear the necklace?
Yes.
Every day?
No, just on occasions, whenever we'd go out and do stuff and all that.
When she came to your house with her bag, did you ever see the necklace again?
No, I did not, Your Honor.
Do you know where this necklace is?
I do not.
Did you throw away a necklace?
I guess anything's possible because when she left and sent me the "have a nice rest of your life" text, it looked like a hoarder's room, so I guess anything could have been in there.
Who cleaned it up?
I did.
Didn't see a necklace?
Didn't see a necklace.
Okay. Were you looking for anything of value?
I wasn't looking for anything. To me, it looked like old clothes that probably hadn't been worn in years.
Okay.
I just wanted to clear out the room.
Fine. Have a seat. Other than that necklace, what other jewelry did you have?
I had some rings I purchased from Ojai, California on a trip I previously took for my dad.
Okay. What else? You took a bag of clothes. What specific? Because you had jewelry, shoes. I assume you took some shoes with you because
No,
you're going to be
I
there.
did not.
Well, you were wearing a pair of shoes.
Yes, I was. I was wearing my old shoes.
Okay. When you got rid of all of the stuff, Mr. Irwin, you didn't go through any of it?
No, I did not.
Did you give her any notice that she had 10 days, 2 weeks to get her stuff?
I did not give her notice.
On what date did you dispose of all of her stuff?
It would have been around July 20th, about 20 days after or so.
Okay. Well, but even according to your eviction notice, she had 30 days to vacate.
Well, if you read the actual eviction notice, it's 5 days. After 5 days, you have to file another part of the eviction notice, which is unlawful detainer, meaning that she is now there illegally. So she left within the 5 days, willfully.
Caption, coming up.
I'm 19 years old, and I want to live to be 79. And right now, that doesn't look good for you. I'm telling you, you look troubled and older than your years.
A courthouse. The Judy Justice logo appears. In the courtroom, Isabel and Neil.
19-year-old Isabel Irwin has accused her father, Neil Irwin, of throwing out her personal property. Neil claims he paid for Isabel's belongings.
Okay, so you didn't file the next step.
I did not.
So she left within 5 days. That was...
Yes.
And she just left the place a mess.
A mess, yes.
Okay, who is this?
This is my mother, Janice Leonard.
Could you stand up, please, for a moment? Miss Leonard, how many grandkids do you have?
Well, from Neil too, I have 6.
Did you and Miss Irwin get along?
Oh, yes. She came to, we lived in Idaho at the time. I had an equestrian center. So every summer she would be there all summer long. We taught her to ride. She had the best horses. She jumped. She was a fantastic rider. But as the years went on, it was just getting more difficult. When she turned 14, her behavior changed drastically.
Can you describe, I know that you moved back to where your son lived. And according to the answer, he gave you a key to the house. He was in Las Vegas on a trip.
That's correct.
Could you describe when you went into the house what Miss Irwin's room looked like?
Every time I would go over there, the house would be worse every single day. And there was a very strong pungent smell, so I thought the dogs were going to the bathroom. Her room was a total disaster. There's clothes literally strewn, I don't know how tall, but 12 inches maybe. Nothing was ever picked up. And one day, before Neil came back, I said, this place is really smelling bad. And later I learned that they were smoking marijuana. They would be in the bedroom and giggling and in the bathroom together. And when I would come, she'd only be there for maybe 20 minutes and they both would leave. There was no respect, I have to say. I've seen her in action and she can be very nice and very polite, but there's a whole nother side that is actually very scary, to the point when she was years ago, 14, my husband and I were locking our bedroom door because we were afraid of her when she stayed.
Thank you. Isabel, is that what they call you, or they have a
Yes.
Isabel. Word of advice, caution, you're 19?
Yes.
You look older. That's not a compliment. You seem like an intelligent young woman.
Thank you.
But I see issues there of blaming everyone else, and it's very possible that your father and your mother and other people share the blame in your issues. That's possible. But at this point in your life, Isabel, you're just starting, and you can either spend your life blaming somebody else, parent, grandparents, siblings, for where you are, or you can say, I have to get myself some help and put a period, because I'm 19 years old and I want to live to be 79. And right now, that doesn't look good for you. I'm telling you, you look troubled and older than your years. Your father looks better. Your grandmother looks better. They look appropriate to their age and stage and clearer. So I think that you should get some help. I also think, Mr. Irwin, there were things in her room, and believe me, I have seen rooms like that. You know, I have been involved with lots of kids and grandchildren. Most of them grow up, and once they get a place of their own, they walk around with a bottle of Windex and Bounty and clean up after everybody's fingerprints. But if they're living in their parents' house or their grandparents' house, they live like slobs. Sometimes that never changes. But, you know, there's messy, and then there is dysfunctional. And what you are describing is dysfunctional. And I think if your daughter was honest, she would look and she would say, that's dysfunctional. You were in the room, Corey?
Yes, Your Honor.
Stand up. Would you describe your girlfriend's room in her father's house as evidence of being dysfunctional? Not a no. Right here, Corey.
Okay.
Does her room look like your room?
No, it does not, Your Honor.
Would your mother permit your room to look like her room? Is not an answer, Corey. Would your mother permit your room that you're sharing to look like the room that was in his house where your girlfriend lived and you stayed occasionally?
No, Your Honor.
No. Okay, sit down. You should have looked for the necklace. He gave me an honest answer to everything that I asked him. So the necklace was probably mixed in with a load of garbage that was there.
To say the least.
That was accumulated. It was like a hoarder. So I'm
Your
awarding
Honor,
you.
I have a
you
video
to
of
your
the
boyfriend,
room.
$250 to go and buy her a new necklace. Thank you very much. This case is over.
Thank you.
This court is adjourned.
Outside the courtroom, Neil, then Isabel.
I agree with the judge's decision 100%. I think it was very fair.
I think it wasn't fair.
She has so much more potential than what she's doing right now.
I was just trying to get my belongings, and he literally just never wanted me to do it.
She's a great kid, and all reality, she's just making some wrong decisions right now.
I made any really bad decisions. It's all been influenced by my father. You know, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
I hope she grows up, and I love her.
I know I need to grow up, but he evicted me, gave me 2 days, and I didn't want to make my dad mad.
Sarah and Judy.
I hope you weren't talking about me when you were thinking of your grandchildren keeping messy rooms. I try and be neat and nice and organized.
Well, I wasn't thinking about you today as a law school graduate, but I do remember when you were in college and you were staying with us rather than in the dorm, keeping your door closed because it looked like somebody hit your room with a mixmaster.
Maybe just a few too many open suitcases, I guess.
Yeah, open, unpacked suitcases. But got older and more respectful, and then you had your own apartment, and I remember visiting your apartment, and I said, who is it that lives here? I couldn't figure out who lived. It's not the same person who lived with me.
It's a maturity thing, and I think I was shocked to see that she was only 19 years old, in line with what you said to her.
Joseph's 15-year-old son hit Carrie's vehicle.
Court come to order. All rise.
Judge Judy enters.
Have a seat, please.
Kevin approaches.
Hello, Judge.
Good morning.
Case 2138, Cargill versus Simonet.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Judy turns to Carrie.
Miss Cargill, you and the defendant's son had an accident while you were driving your car, and Mr. Simonet's son was driving his electric scooter.
It was like a skateboard, a one-wheel skateboard.
Judy gestures at a young man who rises.
Tell me your name.
Jacob Simonet.
Describe this vehicle that you were riding on.
It's got 2 spaces for your feet. Has one in the back, one in the front.
Now try to look at me. I'm trying to see you.
Oh.
Trying
There's
to
one in the
go
back,
like this.
one in the front, and then there's a big wheel in the center. And you put your feet on either side, and then it balances, and you ride it kind of like a skateboard.
Oh, I actually
have
have
a feeling you
picture
might
of
need it.
myself riding on one of those for about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
We bought it for one of my grandchildren years ago, but it's motorized.
Yes.
It has a motor.
It's electric.
And how fast does it go?
Tops out at about 17 miles an hour.
17.
Yes.
That's pretty fast. Are you required to drive that on the street Where pedestrians walk or where cars ride?
On the sidewalk with the pedestrians.
Sidewalk.
Yes.
Do you drive it on the sidewalk?
Yes, I do.
Do you ever drive it in the street?
I do not.
Now you're going to tell me what happened on the date of this incident, which was August 17th.
This year, yes.
Okay.
Yes, I was going south after work, and I was going to crossing through the intersection. I had the green light.
Is there a chart?
Yes. Yes.
I'd like to see it.
Yeah, I was crossing the intersection.
You're the blue car.
I'm the blue car. And I had the green, it was going, and Jacob had cut through on the red into the green and slammed into the side of my car. He had cut through the intersection.
So he was in the street where the cars travel?
Yes.
Not on the sidewalk?
Right. He was not in the walkway.
Okay, Jacob, I want you to walk up to that sign and show me where you were when you and the plaintiff collided.
I was about right here.
You were in a crosswalk?
Yeah, I was in the crosswalk coming through about
Okay,
right.
is that what, Jacob, is that what the police report is going to indicate? That you were in the crosswalk?
I don't know.
Well, I assume that there is a police report. Is that correct? Police report's going to tell me where the debris was, I assume. The debris is either going to be in a crosswalk or it's going to be in the street. Where do you think it's going to be?
Some of it was in the street.
Show me the street that you're talking about.
About like right
No,
here.
put your finger on it. Don't go around where it's
About right here.
right there. That would be in the middle, right? That would be in the middle of the street where the cars travel, not in the crosswalk.
Yeah.
Yes,
Judy turns to Joseph.
it's easy.
Sure.
How old is he?
15.
15. I've had a whole bunch of those who are 15. You know when they're telling a fib?
How?
When their mouths are moving.
He's a pretty good kid.
All of my kids are pretty good kids, but you can always
Figured
tell.
out, huh?
Yeah, you can usually tell. Is this your first only?
Both, first and only.
First and only. Oh, well, you probably had some experience with that anyway.
A little bit.
A little bit. Okay, and this happened at what time during the day?
I believe it was about 4, a little after 4, 4:30.
So it was light out.
Yes.
You collided with her car on the driver's side.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, on the door of the driver's side.
The fender.
Fender.
Yes.
Side fender?
Yes, side fender.
Okay, not the front of the car.
The front fender of the car.
Front fender of the car on the side. I'm talking about it was the side or the front?
The side.
Side. So you collided with her
Yes.
because cars don't move sideways.
Yes.
He could have been quite seriously injured.
Yes, he could. He hit the side of the car and he flew up onto the hood and then kind of rolled across the hood, hit my windshield, and then fell onto the ground. And when I stopped, he jumped up, appeared at my window, and apologized, and then asked me if I was okay.
What did he say?
Just said he was sorry. And then he asked me if I was okay. And then I asked him if he was okay. And then he asked me if I was okay. And it went back.
So far, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
And which I was very impressed by, that he was more worried about me than anything else. I moved my car out of the road, onto the side of the road. There was an EMT that was across the street from us, and he came over and assessed him if there was any more damage. He got some road rash and things like that, but he was not seriously hurt, at least that we noticed at the time.
Do you have the police report?
I do.
I'd like to see it, please, Kevin.
Carrie hands a document to Kevin, who brings it to Judy.
Thank you.
She reviews it.
One witness said that he was right next to you and that you went past him and that the light was red. His light was red, which is why he was stopped. That's what I'm reading. He did say that his light was red when the kid initially passed in front of him. Did you get a copy of this police report?
I've seen it, yes.
Explain to me, would you put on this again and leave that one on because that's the version that I believe. Would you walk over there and explain to me what cut the corner was, what you were doing? It talks about cutting the corners. So I want you to understand, I believe that, based upon what I'm reading here, I believe that. So now I want you to show me how you cut the corner.
So I was coming to this one, and I went through, and instead of going here and just going through the sidewalk, I just went like around here and through this crosswalk.
What's cut the corner?
Cut the corner here, right there.
You mean just that little space is what you're talking about? You cut the corner?
Yeah, I went from about...
I want you to understand, I believe that you were in the street. I believe you were in the street, not in a crosswalk. So let's run through that again. Would you please show me what cut the corner was?
Went through here, I came here, and I cut here. So right there, I cut the corner.
Judy gestures for Jacob to return to his table.
He is a nice boy, Mr. Simonet.
Thank you.
Caption, coming up.
You know what my father told me when he gave me my first car? I think I was 17. It was like a tank. He said, because if you get in an accident, I want you to be surrounded by 4,000 pounds of steel.
And later today,
Your claim is that you won a whole bunch of money in some gambling thing. I just want you to tell me how much you won.
Before taxes or after?
Both.
The courthouse. The Judy Justice logo appears. In the courtroom, Carrie, Joseph, and Jacob.
Carrie Cargill claims Joseph Simonet owes for damage after his 15-year-old son hit Carrie's car while riding an electric skateboard.
Okay, the police determined that based upon the eyewitness testimony that the pedestrian Jacob is at fault and believed to have crossed the intersection before having the right-of-way. The vehicle had the green light. In any event, do you have photographs of your car?
Carrie with a photo.
This happened in August, and you were called to the scene by your son, is that right?
Correct.
And you got there, you know that he was a little banged up, but thankfully...
He was in an ambulance when I arrived, but shortly after, yes, he did walk out of the ambulance and suffered some injuries, which I have pictures of if you'd like to see them.
I'm sure he was banged up. He had bruises from falling off the...
From being launched from the vehicle after the collision, correct.
Okay. You know, he was really lucky that she wasn't going faster.
Correct. Could have been much worse. We were
Could have been much
thankful
worse.
for his health and the outcome of the incident.
You're right. Okay, can I see an estimate to fix your car, please?
A document.
Thank you.
Judy reviews it.
What kind of a car do you have?
A 2015 Equinox Chevy?
You had full coverage on the car, is that right?
Yes.
But with a $1,000 deductible.
Yes.
So if you put this through to your insurance, you have a $1,000 deductible.
Yes.
Right? Anything else you want to tell me, Jacob?
No.
Do you still ride one of those things?
It's broken. I don't get a new one now.
It was destroyed in the accident.
You know what my father told me when he gave me my first car? I think I was 17. He bought me the oldest, ugliest car, but it was like a tank. All my other friends were getting these nice, cute little cars, and this one was like an old person's tank Cadillac or something. You know, we're talking 50 years ago. And I said, why do I have to have this car? Everybody else has cute cars. He said, because if you get in an accident, I want you to be surrounded by 4,000 pounds of steel. That's pretty much the lesson that I've sent out there. 4,000 pounds of steel. One and only, surrounded by lots of steel. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,000. Thank you very much.
This court is adjourned.
Carrie, then Joseph.
Overall, I'm happy.
She had some fault due to hitting a pedestrian in a crosswalk.
It was surreal, like out of the movies.
Your heart stops, and all you can do is look for the car keys and panic and get there as fast as you can.
I am so glad that he was okay.
I remember just flying through the air, and then I was on the ground. I got right up.
Be very careful.
Count your blessings and enjoy every moment that you have, because things can change in an instant.
Sarah and Judy.
I know these electric scooters and skateboards are very popular, but even before this case, I tried to look up any rules, laws, regulations. There are a few for electric motorbikes and things like that, but far fewer than I would expect for a machine that can go up to 17 miles an hour when you're 15.
I think that you're right. I think that since those things have become so popular, they really have to be enforced rules. And parents, and this is a very nice father and son, but I've seen kids weave in and out of cars. It always looked like an accident waiting to happen.
Yeah, and this one could have ended in a real tragedy.
He was lucky, and his father knew he was lucky.
Yeah.
Case 2124, McPherson versus Hall. All parties, please step forward.
Gerald McPherson is suing his ex-girlfriend, Natasha Hall, for money she received during their relationship.
Mr. McPherson,
Yes.
how old are you, sir?
40.
What kind of work do you do?
Home care,
Independent, or do you work for a company?
home care agency.
For an agency?
Yes.
How long have you been working for them?
About a year now, but I've been doing home care for about 3 years.
Prior to working for them the past year, and you're still working for them, is that right? Was there a period of time when you were unemployed?
Not more than maybe 3 weeks, but since I know Ms. Hall.
No, I don't want to know about Ms. Hall.
No, I'm telling you my employments that since I've lived in her residence, I've always worked. I worked at the zoo, Census Bureau.
Don't try to think ahead of me.
Okay.
There was a period of time in 2020, according to you, that you became homeless and were living in a shelter.
Yeah,
and that was in what month in 2020?
In June. So if I can explain the situation. I was living in a house that a slumlord wasn't doing the repairs. So I ended up forcing his hand, him selling the property, and the new landlord and my...
Would you look at me when you're talking?
I'm sorry. The new landlord and my other ex, they kept the property. I moved out. I went to a shelter because I didn't want nothing to do with her or the...
You're talking about her?
No, ma'am.
Well, then don't keep pointing to her. I'm asking you...
I'm just pointing in general. I'm not pointing at her.
You actually pointed
I'm sorry.
to her. When you were in the shelter, were you employed?
Yes, for the Census Bureau,
Okay.
doing the census. I was actually out in the field knocking on doors. I was an enumerator.
So you were not working in home health care, you were a census taker.
At that time, yes.
And did you have a child living with you?
Yes, well, not in the shelter, no. I could not have my daughter in the shelter.
How old is your daughter?
10.
And where is her mother?
She's deceased.
Where was your daughter living when you were in the shelter?
With my mother.
Is she living with you now?
She's been with me since June.
In a new apartment?
Yes, I moved in August 1st.
She goes to school from your apartment?
Yes.
Okay. In 2020, you became acquainted with Miss Hall, and there came a time shortly thereafter, uncross your arms, and there came a point shortly thereafter when you moved into her home.
In August, yes.
Of 2020. And you remained in her home until what month and year?
August of 2022.
And in what month and year did you regain custody of your daughter?
June of 2022.
So there was a period of 2 months when you and your daughter lived in Miss Hall's home.
You could say that, but...
Well, I'm saying that because I just asked you a question about timeline.
No, because me and Miss Hall was going through our dispute about this money, my daughter was staying with my grandma. I only brought my daughter there on certain occasions.
When I say you regained custody of your daughter, is that a court order?
Yes, I have it right here.
Just a second. Was the child removed by court order from your custody?
It was removed because the house...
Don't tell me because.
Yes, it was
yes.
Yes.
I have lots of things to do today.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Child was removed from your custody.
Because I didn't have nowhere to live at the time.
Was the child removed from your custody before you moved into the shelter?
She was removed because I was in the shelter.
Did you take her to the shelter?
No, I was not allowed to because there's no men.
So at that time,
female
did you go and live with your mother?
Of course.
Was that by court order?
No, it was
brought her to your mother.
Yes.
May I see the court order that involves custody, please? I'm not getting an answer.
This is the court order, and this is these two forms.
Gerald hands the document to Kevin, who brings it to Judy. She reviews it.
Now that court
Thank
is
you.
the current.
Okay, so the child was placed with the Commissioner of Social Services in Pennsylvania. And the child was placed in kinship foster care, which is a program that I am very familiar with the child's paternal grandmothers. So in June of this year, the child was returned to your custody. At some point in August of this year is when you and the defendants separated and you left the house. This is your claim. Your claim is that you won a whole bunch of money in some gambling thing. What kind of gambling thing?
Caption, coming up.
I don't want to go back to the year, Gimmel, sir. All I want you to do is tell me how much rent you were paying her.
To be honest, I
don't know. I want you to be dishonest with me.
A courthouse. The Judy Justice logo appears. In the courtroom, Gerald and Natasha.
Gerald McPherson claims his ex-girlfriend, Natasha Hall, wrongfully spent the money he gave her for rent.
Your claim is that you won a whole bunch of money in some gambling thing. What kind of gambling thing? I want you to look at me when you talk, not at the papers.
No, I was gonna...
In what kind of gambling thing did you win money?
I betted on 25 games.
What 25 games?
NBA, college, hockey.
Okay, and you bet where?
On FanDuel. It's an app called FanDuel.
Okay, and you won?
Yes.
I don't understand the whole thing. I don't want to learn the whole thing. I don't care about the whole thing. I just want you to tell me how much you won.
Before taxes or after?
Both.
Okay, $36,742, and after taxes, $26,889.
On what date?
So I won the bet on the 28th. It came into my account.
28th of what?
January.
Of what year?
This year.
And you had been living with Miss Hall for 2 years?
Prior, yes.
Okay, and you were working according to you all of that time?
Yes.
Okay, good. Were you paying any rent to Miss Hall?
I have receipts.
Yes. I want to see those. How much rent were you paying?
So when I met Miss Hall...
I don't want to go back to the year, Gimmel, sir. All I want you to do is tell me how much rent you were paying her.
To be honest, I had to pay
I don't know. I want you to be
rent.
dishonest with me.
Half her rent is like $425, and she had me pay half the gas and half the electric and half the cable.
Her rent was $425?
No, it was $850. I had to split it. We're paying half and half.
Miss Hall?
Yes, ma'am.
What kind of work do you do?
I do customer service.
And who else lives in the apartment with you?
My children.
How old are they?
14 and 13.
How large is the apartment?
It's a 2-bedroom.
And the total rent is $850?
Yes, ma'am.
There's no subsidy in the apartment?
No subsidy at all.
Okay. And you have a lease?
Yes, ma'am.
How much did you charge, if anything, Mr. McPherson as rent?
$425.
Well, That doesn't quite sound fair, does it? Did she make a figure with you of $425?
I paid more than that. I paid $425. That's half of the rent. I paid half of the electric and half of the internet bill.
There are 4 people in the house,
Yes.
right? Why is he
But
paying
we're
for?
only
Shh.
2 people.
Why was he paying for half the rent?
Oh, my children don't work, and his child didn't work either.
His child wasn't with you.
The child came with us in June, but she had visitations on weekends.
I don't care if she has visitation. Your children live with you.
Yes.
They don't have to work. They're your children. They're not his responsibility. Okay, I just want to know where everybody's head is at. There came a point, Miss Hall, when Mr. McPherson gave you $6,000 in cash.
No, not in cash.
Check.
No. Both of them were wired. One was directly wired into our Bank of America account.
When? Just a second. When?
The first transaction was on January 31st. The second transaction.
January 31st of?
This year. And the second transaction was the next day, February 1st. $12,000 total.
Do you acknowledge, Miss Hall, receiving $12,000 in your account from Mr. McPherson, or do I have to look at his records?
I do not acknowledge. He gave me $6,000 and $4,500.
$6,000 and $4,500, Mr. McPherson. Does that sound right?
No, it's not right, and I'm going to show you.
Let me see your bank record.
All right, hey,
And
sir.
let us assume that it's $6,000 and $4,500 that he gave you in this year, 2022.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay. Let us assume for the moment that you're correct, because you're suing for $6,000.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, because the first initial $6,000 was 8 months rent. That I'm not.
Let
suing
us
for.
assume that you are correct, that he gave you $6,000 and $4,500. I'm taking you at face value. In January and February of 2022.
Yes, ma'am.
What was the money for?
That he gave me?
Yes. The 2 different amounts of money.
Yes.
There's a $6,000 and a $4,500.
$4,500 was for me to pay my car note off. And
Hey, just a second.
Go ahead.
Why would he pay your car note off?
He said he wanted to.
Oh, no. That's ridiculous. Ms. Hall, let me just check.
Can I say
Shh. No.
He even wrote that on there for your car note.
No, you said in January he won a bet and cashed it out. A few days later, he gave me money via Cash App to catch up on his rent and as a thank you for helping him out. I don't see anything here about gift for a car note in your answer.
So he gave me the money for the car note, and as far as the Cash App money, he gave me money lots of times. So yeah,
Now, I'm talking about the $6,000, madam.
Yes.
Let us assume he gave you $4,500 to pay off your car note. That's what you said.
Correct.
What's the $6,000 for?
The $6,000 was for us to move.
For who to move?
Me and him.
Show me.
The $6,000?
Yeah, show me that there's proof. He says he gave you the money according to his complaint to hold for him.
Yes.
Shh.
We.
Just a second.
A document.
Yeah, February 3rd, he gave you $6,000. This just says he gave it to you.
Yes.
And?
And he told me to hold it so we can move.
Well, you didn't move.
No,
you didn't. Shh. He told you to hold it for him so that you could all move.
No.
So who could move?
So me and him and our children could move.
Well, that's what I just said.
I apologize.
So that we could move.
Correct.
But you didn't move together.
Correct.
So you have to give him his money back. That's simple. That's simple. If you say he gave you the money so that the 2 of you could move and that event never took place, but he in fact moved out, you owe him $6,000.
But then he agreed.
Just a second. That's an easy. Okay. Do I have to deal with anything else? Money for lost wages, rent, utilities? Forget it. He paid all of that with the $4,500 when he paid off your car note. Come on, let's get it together. Lost wages. What are the lost wages for?
But then I had to take off from work because of the PFA, and I had to take off from work to go file out the court and things like that. But in the midst of him saying the $6,000, he didn't pay rent. He didn't pay all of his rent.
He paid off your car note. You owe him $6,000. Your counterclaim's dismissed. We're finished. Thank you very much.
Okay.
This court is adjourned.
Natasha.
Well, I don't agree with the judge's decision. I don't think I owe him the money
That's what women do.
because he gave me a gift and he didn't pay rent.
I also spent $2 grand on her in gifts.
What's done is done.
I'm taking a break from women for quite some time now.
Sarah and Judy.
So I'm glad that the plaintiff's daughter didn't have to go into the larger foster care system and was able to stay with plaintiff's mother. But I was curious that if this was a temporary slip up and he wasn't going to be permanently without housing, why wouldn't he go with his daughter to his mother's house? I was surprised you didn't ask him that question.
You're right.
Fees.
Court come to order. All rise.
Judge Judy enters.
Have a seat, please.
Kevin approaches the bench.
Case 2128, Hall versus Benedum.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Hall, you and the defendant are neighbors,
Yes, ma'am.
and your houses are right next to each other.
Hers is on the corner, mine is
Right next to her.
Yes.
Got it. What your complaint is that I see where those 2 the truck and the vehicle behind it?
The trailer, yes, ma'am.
The trailer. The property to the left of that is your house.
Yes, ma'am.
And the property to the right of that is the defendant's house.
Yes, ma'am.
And it is your claim that the defendant, in writing, agreed to sell you that little piece of property that looks like it's been carved out of her property.
Yes, ma'am.
Because you had a narrow driveway, you wanted to park these two vehicles.
Yes, ma'am.
Based upon that agreement, you went ahead and did some work on that piece of property.
Yes, ma'am.
You put down gravel, you planted flowers, all to make it look as if that piece of property was part of your house.
Not so much to make it look like it's part of my house so I can get in it, because the agreement was that there was 3 pine trees there prior to her telling me that I can buy the property.
No. The 3 trees that are there had nothing to do with this except that they were taken down. And were they taken down and the removal of the trees was paid for by you or by her?
By both of us.
By both. Okay. So you asked to have the trees removed and you both paid to have the trees removed.
Okay.
Not only did you cut the trees down, but you took that property and made it look like yours. You say that there was an agreement in writing for her to sell you that piece of property. So I'd like to see that agreement.
Yes, ma'am.
There's no agreement in writing.
Don't say anything.
The very top line.
Just a second.
Kevin hands a document to Judy, who reviews it.
This is not a contract, sir, to sell land.
I have a lot more.
Shh. Not a contract to sell land. I see what she says to you. I am agreeing to sell you the property you are currently parked on for $1,000 plus costs. Let's get this in motion ASAP. And then she doesn't hear from you, and that's the 18th of May. And then she writes you again a little bit later, and she says her offer will expire at the end of today's business day, 5/19. And on 5/19, at 10 o'clock at night, you write to her, "Hey, Stacy, I've started working on things this morning. I have already been to the city of Akron, and once they are done and I get a surveyor and so on, I will keep you updated if that's okay. Last, everything is time sensitive, and I'm working as fast as I can to get the approvals. Just now seeing your texts."
Right.
Okay, so that's what you're relying on as a contract to purchase property.
Well, the fact that she said that she would sell it to me, and I started all the motion like she said to do. I started all the motions, got the surveyor done, got the deeds done, I got everything done.
All right, that was 5/19/2021. So show me what you did based on this and what you spent based on your belief that she had agreed to sell you the property and you had an agreement for sale, which is like a contract to sale of property. Most people know that when you sell a piece of property, you get a survey, you put it in the contract, you have a contract when the property is going to be transferred. That property would have to be surveyed because clearly you're carving a piece of property out of her property. I want to see what you did and what you spent, because if you spent money based on this, I may consider that as part of your lawsuit, because then it turned out she didn't want to sell you the property. By the way, I wouldn't sell them the property either. It makes your property look ridiculous.
It does. We never agreed to sell the property.
Did you write, "I am agreeing to sell you the property you are currently parked on for $1,000 plus costs"?
Yes, I never agreed to sell the property until I told him he was no longer allowed to park there. It was never discussed.
What is
Depending on the stipulation that my mortgage company requires, which is an appraisal, they had to approve the selling of the property.
All I'm interested in is this one line. The other ifs fall after that. It says, "I'm agreeing to sell you the property you are currently parked on for $1,000 plus costs."
Yes.
Okay, so you did that.
Yes.
I want to see the things that you started to do right after May 19th. You said, "I've already started working on things this morning." This is May 19th. "I've already been to the city of Akron."
Yes. This is a receipt showing the $800 from the surveyor.
Okay, may I see that, please?
There's that one. This is a receipt from the attorney where I had the deed paperwork done.
I'm looking for a date on this, sir. I'm looking for dates on these
Look
things.
at this one too.
Okay, June 15th. What is this?
That's actually when I paid to have the 3 deeds made up. That's the $450 that I had to pay to the attorney for him to make the 3 deeds up. And everything Stacey had to do was sign them.
And that was June 15th. That was not quite a month later.
Right. I started the next day.
Okay. And this is so far what you spent in reliance on her statement that I'll sell you the property for $1,000.
This is a breakdown that I have, that I wrote down, that we can show her that, of everything, the timeline and...
I don't need a breakdown of the timeline, sir. I need the bills for this, not what you wrote.
Okay.
I need the bills for 6 tons of gravel. That was in July.
Here's one receipt right here.
Julian produces documents.
Did he ever give you $1,000?
He never paid me.
Caption coming up.
I'm a common sense person and a property owner. It was overreaching to think that you could buy a piece of that land for $1,000. Overreaching.
A courthouse. The Judy Justice logo appears. In the courtroom, Julian and Stacy.
Julian Hall claims his neighbor, Stacy Benedum, owes for building costs and attorney fees. Stacy is countersuing, claiming Julian was illegally parking on her property.
Okay, so far all I have that you paid was $450 for the deeds, $800 for the survey, and gravel to be delivered.
I got the gravel in there. I also have the concrete that I had laid, flowers and stuff that I put in.
Did he pay part of having the tree stumps removed?
We split the cost and the labor of removing the debris of the trees.
No, ma'am, that's not true.
Who wanted the trees removed?
I never had a problem with the trees. I like the trees.
Don't speak.
He wanted the trees cut down so he could have more space. He was already parking underneath the trees with a smaller trailer, just not his truck. He wanted more space, so he came to me and said, hey, what if I split the cost of the cutting of the trees? I said, that's fine, I'll split the cost, that's fine with me. And then I agreed to let him continue to park there as long as there was no tire marks. That's what it was. And then he built this thing.
Well, he formalized parking there. Okay. At what point did Miss Benedum tell you that she was not going to sell you the property?
This actually started on 4/3 of 18.
I'm not interested. I'm interested in the beginning of these texts, where you clearly had discussions, trees were removed. I don't quite understand why she allowed you to remove the trees, and I don't understand the whole transaction.
Because it wasn't my choice.
Just a second, it was your choice. You wanted to park there. That's what you wanted.
But the trees was dying.
I don't care if they were dying. I don't care if they were shriveled up. I don't care. You carved out a piece of property. Now, if you carved out a piece of property that belongs to her and you didn't have an appropriate agreement in writing, which it has to be, then I believe, based upon her statement that you acted on, you're entitled to whatever you spent to renovate that property. Do you understand? You're not entitled to the property.
No, I understand.
You're not entitled to the property. You're entitled to what you spent to renovate the property. So now I want you to tell me, on what date did she tell you that she was not going to sell you the property?
That was 7/20 of 21. After I got everything done and called her, it's actually because she meet me at the bank. She said, no, I'm not selling to you for $1,000. But it goes deeper than that. That's what I'm trying to explain to you. It goes deeper than that because when it came to the trees, I didn't approach her with the trees. She came to me and said, since the tree was dying, I said, well, I'll go in half with you. At that point, I said, when can I use the property? She said, you can use it as long as you need it. So that's when I started investing all this money into the property.
So what? I don't care. She said to you, you can use it as long as you want.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I said nothing permanent.
She said, as long as I can need it. That's why I invested the gravel.
What I'm telling you, sir, is the purchase and sale of property has to be with a certain formality. If you dealt with an attorney, the attorney would tell you that it had to be in a formality, signed by her, signed by you, the contract that provided for sale, when it took place, what the survey was, whether her bank would agree to let her sell off a piece of the property because you have a mortgage, all of those things. That's why agreements to sell real property, which is land, have to be in accordance with a certain set of rules. This doesn't make it. However, if you relied on her statement in order to improve the property, to make it comfortable for you based upon her text message, I believe that you are entitled, based upon the text message, to what you spent to improve it. But you have to understand, she's not going to let you park there anymore.
And I'm okay with that.
Just a second. Are you still parking there?
No, ma'am.
Since when?
I would say September of 2022.
So you were parked there in July of 21, August of 21, September of 21, October of 21, November of 21, December of 21, January of 22, all the way up to September. You were parking there.
This is because we had...
Don't give me a because.
No,
that's either a yes or a no.
I was parked there, but we also had a civil case, too.
Which he dismissed 2 days before.
We had a civil case. She called the police.
He called the police on me twice.
The question was, when did she tell you she wasn't going to sell you the property?
September, when she agreed not to meet me at the bank. That's when she told me she wasn't going to sell it.
September of 2022?
Yes, ma'am.
I never knew we were meeting at a bank.
Just a second. So
I can do better
in
than that.
September of 2022, she advised you.
No, I'm sorry, it was August of 2021.
Well, show me in August of 2021 that you told him you weren't selling the property.
Here's.
Okay, I'll take both, Kevin.
Julian and Stacy hand documents to Kevin.
Thank you.
He brings them to Judy, who reviews them.
And this was after she agreed.
Shh. Okay. I'm just looking for the date on this.
Yeah, there's not a date on there, I'm sorry, but that was after May 18th of 2021. That was maybe July or August of 2021 when I told him, since he didn't meet all the requirements, that I no longer want to sell
What
it.
requirements?
He never met the requirements of paying me the money or getting the land appraised. The only thing he didn't do that my mortgage required is the appraisal.
Ma'am, that wasn't true because I did everything that the city of Akron told me to do, who deal with this on a regular.
Did you get an appraisal?
I got the land surveyed. She didn't tell me about nothing about appraisal until after I got everything done.
That's why you have a contract in writing for the sale of property, sir. I don't think you did anything intentionally wrong, but there was an appraisal that was necessary. Clearly, if she has a mortgage and a bank is giving her a certain amount of money on a parcel of property, and she wants to sell off a piece of that property, the bank is going to want to know how much the value of the property has diminished by her selling it to you. So you have to have an appraisal. Do you understand?
I understand that.
Okay, and you didn't have an appraisal. I'm not going to tell it to you again. And all I want to know is when she first told you that you didn't have a deal. So once she told you that you didn't have a deal, whatever else you invested in this property was on you.
No, and I didn't invest anything else other than getting an attorney and paying everything I needed to pay him.
Once she told you that she wasn't selling the property to you, what'd you need an attorney for?
Caption coming up.
You're not the aggrieved party here. You got to park for free because she was a good soul. I would have had your trailer and your truck towed to an impound on day 2.
A courthouse. The Judy Justice logo appears. In the courtroom, Julian and Stacy.
Julian Hall has accused his neighbor, Stacy Benedum, of breaking their agreement. Stacy claims there was never an agreement and is countersuing for parking fees.
Once she told you that she wasn't selling the property to you, what'd you need an attorney for?
Because I had already had an investment after she said she was going to sell it to me. Once the attorney got involved, he told me to dismiss the case. Then after that, like 3 days later, I moved off the property.
Just a minute. So who brought a civil case?
I did.
When?
Last year of 21.
And what happened with that case?
It was dismissed.
What did you bring a case against her for?
For breach of contract.
It was dismissed because there was no contract.
Your Honor, can I say something?
What?
He made all these improvements in 2018 before we ever discussed selling the property.
You mean he put the gravel in?
Yeah.
Well, how could he put the gravel in over trees?
The trees were cut down in 2018.
Is that right, sir?
That's correct.
The trees that were cut down in 2018, well before this.
Yes.
So you did use it. You used it for how many years? You used it 18, 19, 20, and 21. You used it. You used it. You had value from it. You had value from somebody else's property. You used her property for you to park on. You can't.
I wouldn't have done none of this if she would have told me no. Every move that I made, I asked her first. I got it in a text message. I asked her, can I do this? Can I do this? She said, yeah, go ahead and do it. If she would have said no, I wouldn't have done none of it. I wouldn't have put a dime into the property.
I'm not going back to 2018, sir. If you made these improvements in the property in 2018 or 2019, before there was any hint of a writing that she was going to sell you property.
A verbal that I can park there as long as I wanted to.
Okay, your case is dismissed, Mr. Hall. You don't have a case. You did park there until she told you not to park there anymore. And you had the benefit of parking there for at least 3 years.
I got money invested that she told me
you had the benefit of parking your things there for at least 3 years. Are they gone now?
His truck and trailer are, but the gravel's still there, and we have to clean up, get rid of that stuff.
It was a huge mistake, so you're going to have to take care of that yourself.
Okay.
And I would take care of that because that looks ridiculous.
I will.
That looks ridiculous. You have a counterclaim.
Yes.
For parking. Forget it.
But listen, I told him he couldn't park there back in May of 2021. He continued to park there till...
So you should have been more vigilant.
My attorney didn't notify him till May of this year, of 2022, that if he continues to park there, we'll charge him $75 a day. And he continued to park there until the case was dismissed in August of 2022. So I'm only suing him for May of 2022 to August of 22.
And did he move it?
He did.
Okay. You still living there?
Yes.
Do you talk to him?
No.
Had you talked to him previously?
Yeah.
We had a good relationship.
I'm a common sense person and a property owner. It was overreaching to think that you could buy a piece of that land for $1,000. Overreaching. And if she had it appraised and if it's something that you want and she had, I guarantee you that that little piece of property would be appraised at a far higher cost than $1,000. Guaranteed. And I guarantee you that her bank would say, you can't let him buy that piece of property for $1,000. How much of a mortgage are you carrying?
$76,000.
Not going to let her sell off that piece of property. You had the benefit of that piece of property for several years. I have to tell you that I really think that it's much nicer to look at plain grass than it is to look at a trailer and a truck. from her backyard.
Your Honor, I wouldn't have done none of it.
I don't.
You would have said do it.
Do you know what your attorney said to you? I can't help you. You don't have a contract. And Mr. Hall, that's what I'm telling you. I can't help you. You don't have a contract. And from what I know now, this all started in 2018 before there was any discussion of buying the property that you can prove to me. Because the thing that you gave me was in 2021. I have to tell you, you never had a problem because she was a good neighbor. If she let you park on her property, so if you think you're the one who's been aggrieved here, the truth of the matter is I don't think that you're the one who was aggrieved here. She let you park on her property. I have to tell you, I wouldn't have let that happen. I had a neighbor who had an easement. And I said, all I want from you when I bought the house was I want you to say that you will never try to claim this property by adverse possession and that you understand that it's my property. And then you can use it because it was a place that looked like it was part of his driveway. And he said, I'm not signing that. I said, if you don't sign it, I'm going to put a fence right in the middle of your front lawn, which is where my property line is. I don't hear from him. I said, you have 24 hours to sign the paper or I'm putting a fence right in the middle of your front lawn because that's my property and you have an easement. And he didn't sign it. He would have lived with the fence until today because it's still there. Now his children are living with the fence because he's gone. You're not the aggrieved party here. You got to park for free for 4 years. For free. Because she was a good soul. She's not a bad guy. She was a good soul. I would have had your trailer and your truck towed to an impound on day 2. She let you park there for 4 years.
I wouldn't have been there.
Goodbye, we're done. Thank you.
This court is adjourned.
Outside the courtroom, Julie and then Stacy.
She knew what type of work I did, so she said as long as I needed it.
It was just a tough lesson of being nice to the wrong person.
It didn't look like it was part of my yard, so I get that part.
I hope we can be cordial and just move on with our life.
It is what it is.
Sarah and Judy.
This is a great example of the statute of frauds and why it exists. So all writings for the sale of land, real estate, have to be in writing and signed by both parties. I'm sure it was created for situations just like these. There's a lot of moving parts. There's mortgages, there's banks involved a lot of the times.
There are easements, there are water rights,
Exactly.
there are all kinds of things.
Legally, there's some of the most complex documents that get drawn up, so it can't be a text message
for false allegations, debit card charges, and personal belongings.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, please.
Kevin.
Case 2131, Gutierrez versus George.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Miss Gutierrez, this is your mother.
Yes, ma'am.
And who is this?
My grandmother.
And that's your daughter?
Yes.
I'm reading the complaint and the answer, and this is what your complaint is about. You claim that your mother had you falsely arrested, as a result of which you spent 4 months in jail. While you were in jail, it is your claim that your mother used a debit card of yours, I think $3,000 worth, and you had some belongings at her house that you want. I gather that you've had some problems in your own life. You have at least 3 children.
Yes.
Was the state ever involved in placing the children in foster care?
No.
And what about your daughter?
My daughter, yes.
And how old is your daughter?
She's 19 months.
At what point did the state become involved with your daughter?
In May of this year, May 18th of this year, when there was false allegations made against, when my mom refused to give me my daughter back.
In May, when you brought your daughter to your mother's house, when?
I called my brother on May 17th of 2022, and I asked him to babysit my daughter.
Your brother. And does your brother live with your mother?
Yes, he was staying with her at that time.
So on the 17th, you asked your brother, who was staying with your mother, if he would babysit for your daughter. Where were you going?
I was needing to go to Fresno, and I had just received my income tax check. So I needed to go to Fresno, and I was on foot because my car was impounded the day prior.
Were you going alone?
To Fresno, yes.
So you brought your daughter on the 17th of May to your mother's house, and your brother was supposed to watch him, according to you, while you went to Fresno.
Yeah, he met me down the street actually because there's a restraining order, so I didn't actually go to the resident.
Who has a restraining order?
My mother has a restraining order on me.
Is the restraining order that she has against you a final order or a temporary order?
It's good for 3 years, that's all I know.
That's a final order. Was that a final order of protection after a trial, or did you consent to it?
I was not notified of the court date. Didn't consent to anything.
Okay, so it was a default.
I don't know what that means.
It means you didn't show up and they entered a final order of protection in favor of your mother, so you're not permitted to go to her home.
Right.
since that's not really the subject of this, I don't have to get into it. In any event, you went on the 17th, you dropped your child off at your mother's house, your brother was there, and then what happened?
I finally got to Fresno, I got a ride, I got to the check cashing place. It literally took me—
Don't tell me, I'm not interested in that. 17th, you dropped the child off. You were supposed to pick the child up when?
That evening.
On the 17th?
Yes.
And did you?
I showed up it was a little before 10. I showed up, I called my brother, I said, I'm down the street. He was like, yeah, I'll be right there.
10 o'clock at night?
It was almost, ma'am, I was on foot. And
it's just, I asked you 10 o'clock at night.
It was right before 10, yes.
Okay.
When I got there, I called him. It had been about 15 minutes had gone by, and I called him back, and I said, where are you at? And he said, Mom won't let me leave with the baby. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, Mom won't let me leave with the baby. My mother instinct kicked in, and I went in like fight or flight, and I walked down to my mom's house, and I knocked on the door and was asking for my daughter. I finally came to my—
Okay, so when your brother said that to you, instead of going to the police, you violated the order of protection.
I ended up leaving and calling the sheriff.
Okay, but you didn't. You went
Of course, yes. I was going for my daughter. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And what happened at 10 o'clock at night or 10:30?
Yes, I finally realized that about 5 minutes of being at the house, I was like, okay, you need to leave. So I left because she wouldn't open the door to give me my daughter. I left. I called the sheriff, and so I told them the situation. So they had walked down to my mother's and let her know that what she was doing was basically—
No, not what she was doing. The police came
and told her
with
that they
you.
could arrest her, and told her that if she did not, that she needed to give my daughter back. But because it was late, the baby was already asleep, and so the cops, they came back down to me, and they said, look, we don't, because they knew me.
Whatever. I'm allowing you to give me a certain amount of hearsay so that I can make this story make sense.
Oh, okay.
Do you understand? But don't tell me because they knew you, what they thought.
Yes,
you were told to come back in the morning.
Yeah, the agreement was that between my mom and the sheriff was that I could pick up Malia in the morning. The sheriff told me to call before 6 o'clock in the morning before he got off his shift, and that he would come back out and do another standby. The next morning came. Between me and my grandma, I had to call my mom. And
no, just a second. What does that mean between you and your grandma? Your agreement was you were supposed to call the sheriff. The sheriff, according to you before 6.
I called my grandma.
No, not the grandma. The agreement was you weren't supposed to call your grandma. You were supposed to call the
but I
sheriff.
needed a ride. I needed a ride. So I called my grandma to have her come pick me up.
Just a second. Where were you?
I was staying at a friend's house. I didn't live in Selma.
Just a second. You were staying at what friend's house?
Kimberly smirks. Caption coming up.
The sheriff came, got behind us, and tried to pin us in, and my grandma went to take off.
So your grandmother was driving?
Yes, ma'am.
And she was trying to evade the police to go someplace else.
A courthouse. The Judy Justice logo appears. In the courtroom, Kimberly and Rhonda.
Kimberly Gutierrez claims her mother, Rhonda George, owes for debit card charges and personal belongings.
You were staying at what friend's house?
My friend Isaiah's.
Isaiah?
Yes. I stayed the night there waiting for my daughter.
Just a second. Isaiah. Isaiah what?
Bonilla.
And what is your relationship with him?
He's my best friend. He's been my best friend since high school.
Where are you living now?
I live with my grandmother right now since I was released.
Full time?
Right now, yes.
What do you mean right now, yes?
I'm in the process of getting my own place.
Okay, so you called your grandmother and then?
Called the sheriff.
And then?
Waited for the sheriff to respond.
And then?
The sheriff did not respond for a few hours.
Okay, so you were waiting for the sheriff to respond. The sheriff did not respond until when?
It was after 7 o'clock in the morning, and it wasn't even yes, ma'am, 7 a.m.
7 a.m. Your daughter is, according to you, 19 months old? 19 months old. And she had prior to that been living with you?
Yeah, she was living with me all the time, yes.
She was living with you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so now let's get back to this arrest that you had. According to your papers, your daughter was with you up until that time. What time did she wake up in the morning?
Usually she wakes up between 7:30 and 8 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, well, then could you tell me why, if she wakes up between 7:30 and 8, why you would even contemplate picking her up before 8 o'clock in the morning?
Because one of my issues was with certain officers that would have been responding, and the officer that responded the night of the incident, he told me if you wanted me to be the officer to respond, you need to call me before I get off my shift.
Fine, but he didn't respond to you. But according to you, he didn't respond to you.
No, it was
so
a
that
different
my
officer.
question to you is,
They did respond at 7 o'clock in the morning.
And did what?
It was a horrible mess.
Well, he did what?
They responded. When they responded, he showed up. The officer told me that he did not want to be there. He said, if I have my way, you'll never see your daughter again. And I looked at him, and I said, wow. Okay.
What do you mean you looked at him? Where were you when you looked at him?
I was right next to him, but I just...
Where, at the precinct or at your house?
No, down the street from my mom's.
Okay, so he responded to you when you were down the street at your mother's house, and he said, I'm not getting involved in this, and if I had my way, you would never have your daughter. And so what did you do?
So at that point, my grandma pulled up and I told him, I said, your assistance is no longer needed and that my grandma could just get my daughter. And he says, well, you already called me. The deputy did. So I said, okay, whatever. He asked me if I had somewhere to live and I said yes and whatever. And so he went down to my mom's. When he went down to my mom's, he was supposed to just go down there and get my daughter. When he was taking too long, I could walk so far this way and I could see straight down my mom's street. So I did. When I did, I see that my mom was out there just giving him an earful. I know this woman very well, okay? So I just imagined what was being said about me. Well, I guess the back door is screwed and nailed shut at the house. I don't know why.
I don't know why. It's not important.
Yeah, so anyways, my best friend went over the back fence.
What do you mean your best friend?
Isaiah Bonilla.
Oh, so you brought Isaiah with you?
He went.
Just a second. So you have your grandmother, and then you've got Isaiah, your best friend, also to go to your mother's house.
Yes, ma'am. He got my daughter.
Isaiah brought her to where you were.
Yes.
And then what happened?
I started walking back towards Isaiah's house. When I started walking back towards Isaiah's house, my grandma pulled up in her car and she was like, are you ready to go get your car out of the impound lot? And I said, yeah, I'm ready. And so I got in her back seat with my daughter. When I got in the back seat, I got in the middle. Well, then she was like, well, I don't know what's gonna happen. Your mom's over there saying a whole bunch of stuff to the deputies, so I don't know what's gonna happen. And so I was like, well, I gotta go get my stuff from Isaiah's. So I go to jump back out the car. As I go to jump back out the car.
But just a second. Now you have your daughter.
Because I needed my wallet. My bag was at Isaiah's. My purse and everything was at Isaiah's. I was gonna go back and pick it up. Well, right when we were gonna go back, the sheriff came, got behind us, and tried to like pin us in, and my grandma went to take off.
So your grandmother was driving?
Yes, ma'am.
And she was trying to evade the police to go someplace else?
Yes, ma'am.
And how many police cars were involved?
One.
Were there ever any more than one police car?
Once we got to the police department, of course, there's a police department.
No, I'm talking about the number of police cars. So there's a police car now.
Coming behind us? No, it was just one.
It was just one?
Yes, ma'am.
And you were accelerating
to
get there? Was the police car siren on?
No.
Well, how did you know that he was trying to pull you over?
Because he tried to hit her car.
Oh, that would give you a clue. So you're telling me he tried to hit your grandmother's car without notifying you in any way to pull over?
Yes, ma'am. That's why I spent 4 months in jail and I beat my case. I went to trial and beat my case. Everything was dismissed.
I'm not responsible for the criminal justice system. I'm only responsible for what goes on here.
Yes, ma'am.
So I assume once you got to the police station, both you and your grandmother were arrested?
Yes, ma'am.
And that was in May?
Yes, ma'am.
And now uncross your arms. And now we're in December?
Yes, ma'am.
Of the same year?
Yes, ma'am.
And you're out of jail?
Yes, ma'am.
You've been out of jail for about?
Since August 25th.
Who does your daughter live with?
Right now, she's with the mentor. She's my ex-husband's aunt, ma'am.
And who placed her with your ex-husband's aunt?
I did.
Not the court?
No, I requested her.
Does the child's great aunt have guardianship?
No,
custody?
I'm getting my daughter back, ma'am.
But for the last 3 months, she's been with this aunt.
Right, because Child Protective Services did get involved, and Child Protective Services, I've been doing everything that...
That's what I asked you. I asked you whether Child Protective Services
Child Protective Services did get involved with my daughter, yes.
Did? That's what I assumed.
And I've been drug testing, I've been doing...
Just a second.
Yes, ma'am.
That's what I assumed, that Child Protective Services was involved. And so if Child Protective Services are involved, then they are overseeing the child's placement with the aunt. You have an ongoing case.
Yes, ma'am.
Probate court.
No, not probate.
Which one, family court?
Family court, yes.
When was the case opened with regard to your daughter in the family
court? May 18th, the day I got arrested, ma'am.
And that child became involved with the foster care system in May. Okay, so your grandmother also spent a little time in jail. How much?
2 weeks.
I quite frankly don't understand your case.
While I was in jail, Your Honor, while I was incarcerated, my mom had all my debit cards, my ID. She had went and actually, because of me getting arrested, she had went to Isaiah's and picked up all of my stuff.
You mean, just a second. Let me understand this. It is your claim that the reason that you had to go to Isaiah's house was to get your pocketbook, your wallet, your credit card that you left there.
But I never made it there.
I understand that. And Isaiah, clearly, from what you tell me, knew of the problem because he was part of this little conspiracy to get your daughter out of the house and was at the back of the house to pick up your daughter who was being put over the fence. So why would Isaiah give your mother?
Because she went over there with a baseball bat and busted out his windows.
Caption coming up.
On February 4th this year, I had...
Kimberly's eyes fill with tears.
I lost my twins, okay? And that was the first time I had contacted my mother because I was going through it and I messaged her and I told her, I said, I really need my mom right now. If anything, I need my mom right now.
A wide-eyed Rhonda shakes her head. A courthouse. The Judy Justice logo appears. In the courtroom, Kimberly and Rhonda.
Kimberly Gutierrez is accusing her mother, Rhonda George, of wrongfully using her debit card and keeping her belongings.
So why would Isaiah give your mother?
Because she went over there with a baseball bat and busted out his windows. And the reason why all of my things were at my mother's was because I hadn't lived at my mom's for over a year.
What your case is about
is my belongings.
You claim that your mother went over and got your wallet from Isaiah's because I asked you what you were doing here. I certainly am not looking into the allegations of false arrest. It sounds as if you did the absolute wrong thing in trying to regain your daughter, whose custody, actually, you lost at a dispositional hearing and was determined to be a dependent child and placed in foster care. That's what happened here.
Right.
Okay, so I'm not even addressing your claims of false arrest.
Okay,
what you
so
did was actually the wrong thing. I said, so what are you suing for? Now,
My
you said you're...
belongings,
Okay,
my
what-
money.
Just a second. What money?
She used my CalFresh, which is my EBT food stamps, and my CalWorks, which is my cash aid through the welfare department.
Just a second. So you're suing her for taking your food stamps and your welfare check.
Right.
Just a second. Your food stamps and your welfare check.
And this is the statement from my tax return of all the money that was on there.
On where?
On my debit card. It had over $3,000 on it, and I marked what was used after she had picked it up. And then these are receipts from some of my belongings that was at her house.
Just a second. You haven't lived in your mother's house?
I moved back to my mother's in the
Just a
beginning.
second.
Yes, ma'am.
You hadn't lived in your mother's house, according to what you said to me. Whitney, was it a year ago? Didn't you say that you moved out of
My
your
mom
mother?
allowed me to come back.
Because there was an order of protection.
She had called me. I was living in Fresno, ma'am.
Just a second. You hadn't lived in your mother's house. You said you were living with your grandmother. For how long were you living with your grandmother before May?
I was living with my grandmother right now. I was living in Fresno, ma'am.
I want to know what property you think...
My clothing, my husband's clothing, my daughter's bassinet. I had jewelry there. I had all of my clothing.
Why would all of your clothing be there? You were living with your grandmother.
I hadn't moved into my grandmother's until I got out of jail. I was living in Fresno, and my mom...
Just a second.
You're not
Is that
letting
what...
me talk.
I'm not understanding your movements.
Okay, my mom kicked me out in 2021, okay? My daughter was just a few weeks old. My mom kicked me out due to her boyfriend.
She kicked you out?
Yes.
And?
When she kicked me out, I went through Marjorie Mason, and Marjorie Mason had placed me in hotels. I was placed in hotels for about 3 or 4 months, okay? And then it was about January of 21. I was at this time, I was pregnant with twins. They had genetic defects. On February 4th this year, I lost my twins, okay? And that was the first time I had contacted my mother because I was going through it, and I messaged her and I told her, I said, I really need my mom right now. If anything, I need my mom right now. My daughter, she had not seen my daughter. She was not a part of my daughter's life. I did not speak to my mother, nothing. So she made an agreement that she would watch my daughter, because I had to go to San Francisco because I was too far along in my pregnancy, and it was just a big old mess.
Do you have any of your daughter's property?
No.
Okay, now, let's talk about this card. Did you pick up her property from Isaiah? That's either a yes or a no, after the 18th of May.
Well, how do I answer that when I did pick up her property, but her cards were not in there? Her driver's license wasn't in there. Her food stamp card wasn't in there.
What were you doing at Isaiah's?
So she asked...
Was this when she was in jail?
Yes, right after she got arrested. So I went down there. No problem, he handed it right to me. Look in my wallet, make sure everything's in there. Like I said, I don't know if it was her driver's license or ID was missing, her food stamp card, and the other card, the bank card. I don't know how to get proof, but her best friend, he cashed out everybody money. There was a bunch of people, even himself.
Information right here.
Even himself and his girlfriend. I don't want to get into the whole...
I don't want to get into it either. It's far too complicated for me. Is what you're telling me that you never used a card that she had?
No, I did not.
Because I'm not concerned about food stamps or welfare.
I did not.
You're suing the wrong person. You were in jail, so you didn't need money from welfare. What proof do you have that
I have my bank statement.
What proof do you have that your mother withdrew money?
She was the one that went and picked up my cards.
Oh, I don't know that. That's not what she says, and you have no proof. Isaiah's not here, correct?
No.
I don't doubt you when you say that somebody used your card. I just need proof
My
to
mother,
show.
I know that she was supposed to get my daughter from CPS. She was supposed to go get a crib with my card, and I have and my grandma can.
I just want you to show
Yes,
me.
ma'am.
No, that your mother I believe that people used your card.
She used my card.
No, I don't know that. I need you to show me proof that your mother
How am I
used
supposed to show? I have my bank statements.
But then I'll take a look at your bank statement. If your bank statement tells me who used your card, then that's an easy. She said she did not. I just want you to show me proof that any of these were used. I mean, we have a lot of PlayStations, DoorDash, Amazon Marketplace,
And
all
I
of those.
that throughout that whole time.
I understand that. I suggest that you concentrate on getting yourself together. If you want to reunite your family, I suggest that you put your priorities in order.
Oh, they are in order.
Evidently not.
I work, I have a job, I go to school, I'm getting my own place, but I'm going to court, I'm getting my kids back.
Good.
Can I give you this?
I don't know what it is.
Well, I just want you to look at it.
Rhonda hands a document to Kevin, who brings it to Judy. She reviews it.
You're telling me this is part of your daughter's criminal history? What is this?
No, I'm just showing you she just got out of jail just a couple of days ago.
They haven't picked up charges, Your Honor.
You were arrested on November 28th?
Yes.
I'm not going to let you tell me about this. You have a lawyer?
Yes.
As I said, Ms. Gutierrez, if you're trying to work to get your family back together,
Yes, ma'am.
and your kids back together,
Yes, ma'am.
it would be a good idea to think about having more children until you get these children back under your roof. We're done here. Your case is dismissed.
Have a good day.
This court is adjourned.
Outside the courtroom, Rhonda.
From an assault.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, please.
Kevin.
Case 2122, Wheat Shilling Hensley.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Weed, it is your claim that the defendants assaulted you.
Yes, Your Honor.
And this is what I gather from reading your complaint. On August 10th of this year, your cat was injured. How was your cat injured?
That I don't know. The morning of the August 10th, I had let him outside. When he came back in, he was acting peculiar. I picked him up and noticed that he had 2 long, deep gashes on between his chest and his stomach.
At what time was this?
Approximately 10:45, 10:30.
And the defendants work at the vet where you have taken the cat before.
Not this particular cat. I have 3 cats total, and I had good service from them, so naturally I went back.
They work at a vet where you had taken an animal, maybe not this one, before.
Correct.
So at that time you put the cat in the car and drove over to where the vet's office is.
Yes.
And during that time, they had a COVID protocol in the vet's office. And the protocol, I assume, correct me if I'm wrong, because I know I've taken my pets to the vet during COVID. You get to the parking lot, you call, they come out, they check in the animal and what's wrong. And then they come out when someone is ready to see the animal, they bring them inside. You do not come into the office. Is that your protocol?
Correct.
Is that your COVID protocol? Well, it was in a couple of vets where I took our dogs. Were you aware of that protocol?
No, Your Honor, not at all.
So tell me, what happened when you got to the vet's office? Is there a parking lot?
There is. There was one other vehicle there. It was pulled up in the front of the door, the very first
The
spot.
papers indicate that there is a chart or a video of the parking lot. Is that correct?
We drew a diagram that they based that on.
Okay. So that would be a fair representation, sir, of the vet clinic, and there are parking spaces in front of it?
I believe so, yes.
Where did you park? Yes, please.
My car, I'm assuming at this point, the main door is approximately over here.
Okay.
There was the vehicle that I was mentioning is parked here, and I was parked here.
Okay, but you were parked right in front.
Yes.
Okay, is that right?
Yes.
Great.
John returns to the plaintiff's table.
Okay, so what happened when you got there?
Well, I walked around the back of the car, got the cat out. He was in the passenger seat in the cat carrier, and I went immediately up to the door, and I don't know the defendants' names, but the younger of the two, she was already out front with a...
You mean the young lady in the blue sweater?
Yes.
Is that who you're talking about?
Yes,
You're
Your
looking
Honor.
over there. What is your last name?
Hensley.
Miss Hensley.
She was already outside with a customer at
Your
that
Honor,
point.
that was, it wasn't me.
Don't speak. Okay, so you say Miss Hensley was already outside with another patient.
I thought it was Miss Hensley. It could have been another lady that worked there, but it was similar in youth and...
Okay, so somebody came out and was talking to another
They were
patient.
already there, and so they stopped me. I was proceeding up to the door, and I, like I say, I have pictures of the signage that they have. So you can't read the signage until you get right up on top of it.
Okay, so you went to the door, and what happened?
I went to go in, and I was stopped.
By whom?
The lady that was outside.
Okay, and the person who was outside stopped you.
And said that you couldn't go in, so I stopped. I told him that it was an emergency, that my cat was injured.
You told the lady
That was
outside.
outside, absolutely. Told him that he was injured and that he needed to see somebody immediately, the vet. And they suggested that I needed to call
And I couldn't understand that because I was already there. I said, "Can't you just go inside and let them know that I was here?" That seemed reasonable to me.
What they told you was to get back into your car with the cat and call the...
No.
Or just call.
Just call. So I said,
So
well,
she was talking to the person, who I assume is a female because you say Miss Hensley, Miss Hensley or someone resembling her. They were taking care of another patient that was outside.
yeah, when they stopped me before
They
I got...
and said, stop,
Correct.
call, right?
Correct.
And you were upset and you said, well, why can't you just go inside and tell them that I'm here?
Yeah,
Well, because she was with somebody else.
Well, it appeared to me that they were done.
Okay, I don't care whether what appeared to you.
yes.
She was outside with somebody else. She told you to call. What happened next?
Well, I set the cat down, and I actually sat on the concrete and waited. That person had...
Waited for what?
That person left. As soon as they got done talking with me, they went into the building. So, and I waited about 5 minutes. And then I guess it was Miss Hensley now. She came out and asked me now if I had an appointment, my cat's name. I said no. And I told her, I said no, it was an emergency. And then she told me at that time that there was no vet on duty. And so then that's when I got up. I was upset. I said that I needed to leave. I did use an explicitive.
What did you say?
Well, I said that I needed to get out of there so I could get some help.
Okay.
And then I picked up my cat in the carrier and I was proceeding to leave.
And?
That's when the other plaintiff,
Miss Schilling came out?
and she confronted me and she started into a huge rant about how she wasn't going to stand there and listen to this or whatever.
Were you shouting at Miss Hensley?
No.
No. She told you that there was no vet on duty.
Right.
And you got up and you said, I'm going to get the whip out of here.
Correct.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. The fact that I had waited 5 minutes, I was, it was upsetting. So then when she
Miss Schilling came out and?
She started into a huge rant.
What did she say? Rant is a conclusion. What did she say?
Well, she had her voice raised. She was shouting at me.
What did she say?
She said that she wasn't going to stand there and let me say things to this other woman. So then I just looked at her and I told her basically to shut up. So
is that what you said to her?
I told her to shut up.
Okay, so you again used an expletive.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, there was no reason for
she said,
okay.
I'm just asking you what happened.
Yes.
So you told her to shut up.
I did.
And?
That's when she came over. She was probably about 3 foot away, and she stepped right over into me, and she put her body on mine. So she stepped right into me, pushed me back with her body, and she told me, I'm not afraid of you, I'm not intimidated by you. And I told her, don't touch me, get off of me. And I told her twice, and she never moved. I put my cat down, and I moved her off of me.
What do you mean,
I pushed her back off of me.
You put your hands on her?
She was already on me.
How was she on you, sir? What physical part of the defendant?
Her chest, her entire body was leaning on me at that point. She body checked me.
I'd like you to go over there and show me where Miss Schilling came out and where the 3 of you were standing.
Okay, I have pictures as well.
Okay.
So here being the front door.
Yeah, right.
And here was the box where I was sitting. When I picked up the cat, I moved over to here. When she came out the door, she was approximately here. And then she moved over to me and put her body on mine.
When Miss Hensley came out and told you there was no vet, why didn't you just get into your car?
I was leaving.
Well, when she came out, why didn't you just go into your car?
No, the first lady that I encountered never told me there was no vet.
No. I understand that. When Miss Hensley came out and told you there was no vet, why didn't you just get into your car?
I was leaving. I had picked up my cat and literally was walking away. I had walked from here to approximately here. In that meantime, she came out and I had my back to her at first and she started to yell.
No, he wasn't. He was yelling in my face.
Just a second. I'm going to let you have a turn as soon as he's finished. Go ahead.
She started to yell at me and that's when I told her.
Okay, go back.
Thank you.
And then what happened? So now she put her body on you. You put both hands on her and pushed her back.
To push her off me.
And then what happened?
Then she struck me.
How did she strike you?
With her open hand.
Where did she strike you?
On my face.
Okay, when you pushed her, she slapped you.
She did.
And next?
And then the other one slapped me. She reached over her shoulder and slapped me.
Okay, on the face?
On the face.
And then?
And then we started to argue, and it was just yelling back and forth. And then the gentleman came out of the vehicle that was parked in that first spot, and he kind of diffused the engagement, and that's when she told me just leave. I felt safe enough to turn at that point, and I went and put my cat back in the car, and that's when the lady in the blue ran behind my car, said, don't let him leave, ran behind my car and placed her body on my car. And then that's when I told her, I says, you can't detain me here. I'm going to take my cat to someplace where I can get him some medical. And I moved her away from my car.
How did you move her away?
With my hands.
So you...
Open hands.
Okay.
That's when she turned and struck me with her fist, broke my glasses, gave me a black eye. I was defending myself at that point. I had my hands up. I'm all cut up on this. And then that's when I finally grabbed her by her hair and pulled her off of me.
Which one did you grab by the hair?
The brunette.
Hannah fumes. Caption coming up.
What was he saying to you?
Sorry, it's a lot. Reliving it. He started screaming in my face, and I don't even remember. I'm so sorry. I don't remember exactly what he was saying. It was really scary. That's all I know.
A courthouse. The Judy Justice logo appears. In the courtroom, John, Heather, and Hannah.
John Wheat claims vet assistants Heather Schilling and Hannah Hensley owe for damages after he was assaulted in the parking lot.
Okay. Now, prior to her going behind your car, you had no physical interaction with her.
Other than her hitting me.
She slapped you.
Correct.
Okay. Got it. Okay. Miss Hensley, you came out at some point. What do you do for the vet?
I am a vet assistant.
And how long have you worked for the vet?
Like a year and a half.
So you've been working for the vet all during COVID?
Yes.
Is this the first incident that you had while you've been working at this vet?
Yes.
How long have you been working at the vet?
10 years now.
Have you ever had another incident like this, either during COVID or before?
Not like this, Your Honor. I've had to call the police before. We've had threats. We've had people shouting. Of course, animals bring out emotions, but never has anything ever been physical.
Did you know Mr. Wheat from prior visits with other cats?
I did not. I do know that we had seen one cat once before, and that actually was during COVID.
During COVID?
Yes.
So you checked, and it was the same COVID protocol?
Yes.
Even one?
We've had the same protocol since COVID started.
Okay. So the last time you took a cat there, you were familiar with the COVID protocol. Just think about what you're saying to me.
Okay.
The last time you took a cat there was during COVID, so you were familiar with the COVID protocol.
I believe I might have called before I went there.
And you waited in the parking lot. Somebody came out, took the cat inside.
I believe so.
And that's the protocol. And the reason that you didn't do that this time is because you felt as if it was an emergency.
Yeah, I was not aware of any protocol.
Yes, you were.
No.
Oh, yes, of course you were. Of course you were aware of a protocol, sir. The woman outside told you that there was a protocol. She said you have to call first. And she was speaking to somebody out in the parking lot. You know, you've had animals for a long time. When I go to the vet, there usually isn't somebody out in the parking lot. So you know that there's a protocol because you know that somebody else was out there talking to a patient and said to you, you have to call first.
After, yes.
And said to you, you have to call first. Okay. Now, you want to tell me what happened when you first interacted with him?
Yes, so he was sitting outside, and so I went out and told him that he would have to call to check in, that we were curbside, and he said that he wasn't calling anybody. And I told him that I was very sorry, that was not how we ran things, that he had to call and check in over the phone, and then that we would come out and then bring in his cat. And he said that he wasn't doing that he wanted to see a doctor then. And I was like, you cannot do that. And so then I asked him, did he have an appointment with us? Like, what's the cat's name? I'm not even sure, you know, what we're dealing with here. I need to get an idea of what we're dealing with. And I think he said the name's, the cat was Pebbles. I don't even know. I'm not sure. But I asked him if he had an appointment. He said no. And then I asked him what was wrong. And he said, the cat's bleeding out. She's dying. Something along the lines of that. Screamed at my face. And so I said, sir, I'm so sorry. You need to go to an emergency clinic. We don't have a vet today. And so then he started screaming in my face, got up, screaming in my face, this.
Was there a vet there?
No, we were doing tech appointments that day, so just like nail trims, things like that, things that we can do without doctor.
So there was no vet there?
Yeah, there was no vet.
So you told him you have to go to an emergency room?
Yes.
And when you said there was some shouting, what was he saying to you?
He was basically saying...
No, not basically.
It happened a long time ago, so honestly, I don't remember the exact words.
Okay, so you don't remember exactly what he said to you. He was angry. Okay, he sort of acknowledges that he was angry. Then what happened?
I'm sorry, it's a lot. Reliving it. Sorry. I'm sorry. He started screaming in my face that we weren't helping and that he would be leaving, but he just was still screaming in my face. And I don't even remember, I'm so sorry. I don't remember exactly what he would say.
Just take a minute.
It was really scary, that's all I know. And I told him that he needed to leave and he wasn't, and that's when Heather finally came out and told him that he needed to leave. She got in between us and was like, sir, you need to leave now. And she just kept saying, you need to leave now. And he kept screaming in our faces, and she was like, I'm not gonna have you screaming at my girls. That's what he's referring to when she got into his face.
She said she did step into his face to push him away because he needed to leave. And she said, you're not gonna be screaming at my girls. He still was being belligerent, not leaving.
At that point, that's when he spit in my face, and that's what caused me to shove him.
And then
So
he
when you said, so we'll stop for a second. You came outside because you heard an altercation outside.
Yes.
Tell me what happened when you came outside.
So I did come at them. I stood in between the two of them, and I told him he needed to leave. He needed to leave now. I told him I was not going to have him talking to my girls like that. That wasn't appropriate. He needed to leave. And he was still shouting, and then that's when he spit in my face. And then I did push him away to get back from me, and he stepped forward. I did smack him with an open hand, and then he pushed me. And what he's leaving out is he actually grabbed my scrub top, and he was pulling on my scrub top, and that's why Hannah had stepped back in. She tried to get his arm off, which probably is where the scratches came from, and he grabbed her scrub top at the same time. So there was more contact than...
Where was the cat?
The cat was actually behind me. He had left the cat there.
Sounds like a little bit more, Mr. Wheat, than what you told me in your narrative.
They're lying. First off, she said that when she just admitted to the fact that she told me that I needed to call. And that's the first thing I said when I came and pulled up, is that the person that I met outside at the very beginning told me that I needed to call.
Yes.
And she just said that she told me I needed to call. There would have been no reason for the second person to come out and tell me that I needed to call. At that point, they came out and told me, asked me if I had an appointment, and I said no, that it was an emergency. And I had my cat the entire time with me until I put him down in order to push her off of me. That's the only time I put my cat down, and he was next to me the whole time. I would not have left my cat between her and me.
Mr. Wheat, these people have been in business for a very long time. Is it just possible, sir, that because of the circumstances, and you were there with a cat who was bleeding out, that you were high energy and maybe not totally composed? I mean, I have two people work here, at least one who's worked for the same vet for 10 years. You've used this vet before. You haven't had problem with this vet before, and she's been there 10 years. And I assume that, at least she tells me, she's never had an incident like this before. So I can actually imagine, you know, I'm trying to put myself here. Somebody comes out and says to you, we don't have a vet on duty, which you probably didn't believe at the moment.
No, I did.
Well, if you believed that there was no vet on duty, why did you just walk into your car? Why did you say anything to her? Why did you use an expletive? Why was there any need to have any communication at all with her? If there's no vet here, okay, I better get my animal too.
Well, Your Honor, when I first pulled in and I had that conversation with whoever that worked there, and I'll use that term loosely, whoever, they knew what I was there for.
Don't tell me what anybody else knew, sir.
Caption coming up.
You were not told that there was no vet inside by the first person that you encountered.
No, that's wrong.
No, I was absolutely right, sir, in what I said to you. So say yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
A courthouse. The Judy Justice logo appears. In the courtroom, John, Heather, and Hannah.
John Wheat has accused vet assistants Heather Schilling and Hannah Hensley of injuring him after an assault in the parking lot.
Go ahead.
I explained that it was an emergency.
Just a second. The person that you were talking to, you just told me, was dealing with another client who had another animal out in the parking lot.
And I told them that it was an emergency.
Okay. Well, you know, one man's emergency is not. How's the cat?
Now?
Yes.
The cat's fine from that injury, but he's blind now.
Well, fine from that. Did you get the cat to a vet?
I did.
How far away?
20 minutes.
And what did they do to the cat?
Clean and sutured.
And you took him home?
I did.
And you took him the same day?
I did. Yes.
And when you went to the second vet, it was an emergency vet?
It was.
Okay. Did they have a curbside arrangement there? They did not?
No.
Had you called them if you drove? Well, you mean you drove 20 minutes not knowing if they could get to see a vet?
They're open.
How do you know?
I've been there many times.
Mr. Wheat, do you think that I think that you drove with your cat without calling first to see if they were open and a vet there when they had already told you that their vet wasn't there? Why would I get in the car? I wouldn't at least make a
The
call.
only other vet that's available right there.
Well, how do you know that that vet was available?
I've never been there where they've not.
You have any medical records for me to see of your injuries? I'd like to see
My
them.
injuries?
Yeah.
No.
Well, I'd like to see them.
I have pictures of my injuries.
I'd like to see that. Miss Schilling said that you spit in her face. Is that true?
That's not true. You're not. I don't have any lower teeth. When she was in my face yelling at me, and I was yelling back at her, that's when she made that accusation.
It was more than just a little bit of spittle, Your Honor.
It was what?
More than just a little bit of spittle, Your Honor. He full on spit.
Okay. Do you have a police report?
I do.
I'd like to take a look at it.
John produces a document, then hands it to Kevin. He brings it to Judy, who reviews it.
Okay, so the police report indicates that they were called. I assume they were called by you?
Yes.
Because they responded to their location. And the police officer observed red marks on her neck and her hair falling out of her head.
I do have pictures as well, Your Honor.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I pulled her off of me.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I got all those scratches in my black eye.
I'd like to see the defendant's photographs.
Okay.
Heather hands documents to Kevin, who brings them to Judy. A photo of John with a black eye.
Mr. Wheat, I've read the police report, I've looked at your pictures, and can I see the pictures from the defendants?
A photo of Hannah's bruised neck and of a small bald patch on her head.
I do not have a cross complaint. Your answer, Ms. Schilling and Ms. Hensley, both indicate this was a terrible incident and you just wanted to go away.
Yes, Your Honor.
You too. You too.
I did call the police.
You too.
I called the police before they called me.
You too. Mr. Wheat, you know, there are certain things that are common sense. And the common sense of it is you were upset, you were aggravated, you were angry, you were not getting what you needed. You were not told that there was no vet inside by the first person that you encountered. So
No,
you
wrong.
Well,
I wasn't told until after the second person came.
I said, no, I was absolutely right, sir, in what I said to you. I said you were not told by the first person that you encountered that there was no vet inside. So say yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. It wasn't until Miss Hensley came outside that she told you that there was no vet inside. That is correct, ma'am.
That's correct.
Right. Now, in between that time, according to you, you sat outside for 5 minutes.
That's correct.
You sat outside for 5 minutes and you did not do what you were instructed to do by the person who was outside taking care of another animal. And they said, you have to call first. You said, you're right here. Why can't you tell them? That's what you just told me. Is that correct?
As soon as I finished with the conversation about them calling, they left me and went inside.
That's okay. You did not call. And you sat there on the cement, according to you, and waited. Then she came outside and told you there's no vet.
That's correct.
Okay. By that time, you were very angry because now you had a cat that was sick. Oh, yes, absolutely. It says so in the police report that that's what you said. You said you were belligerent.
I was.
You were belligerent and you were angry, but the first physical contact that happened was the defendant to you. But you say you were belligerent and you were angry.
Yes.
And you honestly said that to me.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. You didn't act smart. If I had my animal that was bleeding to the vet and they said call, I would have called. And if I didn't call and if I waited outside and somebody came outside and said to me, the vet's not here, all I would have said is, why didn't somebody tell me that before? Because I waited out here for 5 minutes, even though I didn't do what I was told to do, which was to call first and check in. Do you understand? Your case is dismissed. We're done.
This court is adjourned.
John, then Heather and Hannah.
Obviously, I have to stand by what she said.
I think that it was very fair. I think that she saw that he was an angry man who was upset about his cat.
They were the aggressor to me.
As soon as he was screaming and yelling, I think that that was the line.
I was holding up my hand trying to protect myself from her. She hit me, broke my glass, gave me a black eye.
The sooner that you leave, the sooner you can get your cat treatment.
I was upset at some point, I would have to say. That's true.
Pretty bad. I've been having issues like working with people coming up to the door.
Cat survived.
He is not welcome. The police did place a no trespass, and that was honestly our goal. We just didn't want him to come back.
You know, people get really upset when their pets are injured and they can't get immediate care. It's not quite as acute probably as when your child is sick and you take them to the emergency room and there are 500 people in the emergency room, but your child has a sore arm. You don't know if it's broken or not, you know, and you're agitated. He was clearly agitated, agitated and angry. Actually, I sympathized with him. You know, the first person could have said to him, we have no vet. If it's an emergency, go someplace else. Didn't. And then he sat and waited. And as he sat and waited, got angrier and angrier.